Greetings, fellow Amblamites. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And welcome to Season 4 of Spielberg Month. Since Steven Spielberg doesn't do audio commentary on his own work, we thought we'd do it for him. After all he's done for us, it's the least we could do for him. We selected 4 films from his vast catalog of work to commentate on. So let's get ready, Player One, to go on a series of podcasts that requires no artificial intelligence to comprehend. We're encompassing everything under the empire of the sun, and always coming up with new observations to share along the way. It's time for the next blockbuster installment of Spielberg Month. Dragon, just a little amendum here to the father figures list. I know I added a ton of honorable mentions, but another one that I wanted to put on, just, since it's still not Father's Day, so I just want to shout out a father figure.
Ooh.
Botanicus.
Oh, God.
I've been listening to a lot of podcasts The Ride recently. Hashtag Botanicus. You know of Botanicus.
Yes, I know of Botanicus.
All right. So anyways, speaking of something that's just as absurd, AI, artificial intelligence. Dragon, we've done it. We've gotten to the point where we have to talk about this movie.
Yep.
Oh boy. So basically, folks, this is the best way I can describe kind of like the looming air of dread surrounding this movie, Dragon, in our eyes is I personally dreaded doing Schindler's List, not because Schindler's List is a bad movie by any means, just because, of course, you got like the super depressing subject matter mixed with the real tragedy. Ultimately, no matter how you shake it, Schindler's List, with the exception of the Oscar Schindler running joke, I'll give that commentary that much. But with the exception of that, it's like it was a very bleak one to get through. AI doesn't have the excuse of historical accuracy, right? Like AI is just like, I wasn't looking forward to AI just because it's dark and bleak and grim and depressing and just like oppressively so the whole damn movie, and it just never lets up. And I have childhood trauma with this movie, Dragon. I saw this movie when I was about 10 years old in theaters. So you can imagine. It was something. It was, it was definitely one of those experiences that just kind of stuck with me, not necessarily in a good way. Dragon, rewatching it, I will give the movie some credit. All right, like it's definitely disquieting and it's definitely disturbing. It kind of plays like a horror movie, but you know what? I do think it's kind of effective in that way. Like I don't think this movie is boring. I hesitate to say that because, of course, I feel like the longer we get into the runtime of this movie, the more and more meandering it gets. But I feel like at the very least, like, the pacing of this movie through the first 2 acts of it, at the very least, are pretty. It's pretty breakneck. Like a lot of interesting stuff is happening, Dragon. That's the key word of the day. It's like an interesting hesitation. I really, it's a kind of movie where it's like I really can't say that I would recommend it to people, but I do think, of course, we're going to get into the backstory of it momentarily here, folks, but it's got a fascinating backstory. It's Spielberg emulating Kubrick, and I think he does a good job of that. It definitely feels very Kubrickian in a lot of spots, especially in the first act. Dragon, looking back on it, Act 1 is, I'll save it for the commentary. But, just generally speaking, that's my thesis. It's, it's a movie that definitely scarred me as a child, And rewatching it, Dragon, let's just kind of like, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, this isn't going to be so bad. Oh God, oh no, the pool scene's coming up. Oh God, I'm not ready for this. So, Dragon, suffice to say, it's just as horrifying as an adult as it is as a kid. Like, this movie is kind of relentlessly just kind of a downer, but it is very imaginative and it's pretty to look at. And honestly, I think the effects hold up pretty damn well for the most part. I think some of the sci-fi stuff doesn't necessarily hold up as well. We'll get into that as we dig through the movie. But it's, like I said, keyword interesting. It's a very interesting movie.
Right. Well, on my side of things, AI, AI was the transitional phase in Spielberg's career. And, this is during that phase. And, of course, that phase is like, remember Spielberg was going through that, in the early 2000s, Spielberg had that sci-fi phase going on. Yeah, you have
Minority Report.
And this.
Uh-huh.
And, of course, also...
End of the 2000s trilogy of depressing sci-fi.
Yeah, and some people call it the Running Man's trilogy because usually the characters are on the run in some capacity.
Everybody runs, Dragon. Everybody runs.
Well, sure, and also that would include Catch Me If You Can. That's why they kind of call it the Running Man trilogy.
And then we get to the terminal and just stops. Like everyone just takes a break.
Oh yeah, it's about. Well, people need the rest. I don't know. Anyway, point being, I mean, Tom Hanks got tired after all that running. And
you put mustard and ketchup crackers.
You really got it. It's more than just the. It doesn't matter.
Oh, yes, I do have it out for the mustard. It's not that scene. It's just the way that the mustard and ketchup crackers. Just that scene goes on for way too long.
It doesn't go on that long. You just
yes, it does. Okay,
call it back anyway.
Before it goes any further. Anyway.
So seriously, though, so this movie again, it's kind of during that phase in Spielberg's career. This to me is in kind of looking at Spielberg month and kind of learning about the man himself as we go through these. And this to me is kind of the core of Spielberg in the filmmaking community. This is all about the bonds that Spielberg has forged. You can say famously in certain podcasts like Blockbusters. You have
if Blockbuster had a season 2, I would want it to be about this.
This could be great.
I'll lay out that, it's like I feel like this is like unexplored territory for making of stuff.
But seriously, I mean, you kind of see again. This is Spielberg is known for having kind of his the friend the kind of the director friends George Lucas De Palma, John Milius a whole bunch of his his director pals, including kind of your bigger names like Martin Scorsese's as well as your Stanley Kubrick's.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all about that. So this movie is kind of reflective of those bonds they forged. One could say to an excess, because it's kind of a twofold thing here. Spielberg, again, it's kind of like paying tribute to a friend, as well as Spielberg, in my opinion, wading into the treacherous waters of artsy filmmaking. But again, coming from a noble place, not a pretentious place. But I feel he's kind of wading into pretentious waters, and I feel that kind of hurts him a little bit at the end of the day on this one. It's like this movie is kind of it's like a bizarre once in a lifetime intersect of two paragons in filmmaking, Spielberg and Kubrick. And they're both trying to emulate each other's styles. I'm not the first to say this.
Oh God, yes, that's the most bizarre thing about it, but we'll get into that with the backstory.
Again, oddly enough, once in a lifetime, years later with Ready Player One, the film that we've covered, it's kind of the better ending to the story in the grand scheme of things. Where again, like Spielberg eventually, with
right, yeah.
The point being, so again, it's just kind of like one of those like stranger than fiction movies in all of filmdom in many respects. It's like this movie. It's experimental, yet it's a very dicey film. Again, for all of that stuff, it's experimental. By the same token, experimental doesn't necessarily translate to really good or mind bending. Just maybe more mind bending in terms of it happened.
Like I said, it's interesting. It is interesting.
That's the thing. I'm with you, Tig. Honestly, part of me would be a little bit more interested in the making of than.
I'm definitely more interested in the making of than the actual movie.
I think we can all agree this movie is definitely tonally off in a lot of places, and that kind of leaves a taste in the mouth for the rest.
Dragon, honestly, I'm just realizing this right now. What? This movie might be the genesis of my dislike of tonally inconsistent movies.
Wow. Well, I could buy it if all movies.
I'm just kind of having a revelation here.
All right. Well, speaking of the very interesting background, because folks usually we kind of cover the background, for good measure. This one we really have to cover the background with this one.
Yeah, let's make this as economic as possible because it's a long movie. But yeah, we definitely need to spend some time on it for sure.
Right. Basically, we're going to focus on the important part here. Okay, so here's what we do. So it all starts in '79. Of course, the year of the Muppet movie, '79. Spielberg, it's a year. It's basically like kind of the year that he's making Raiders of the Lost Ark, I believe. So it's a Spielberg. He's scouting locations at Elstree Studios in London for Raiders of the Lost Ark for some of the soundstage work. And while he's doing that, he kind of bumps into Stanley Kubrick while he's shooting The Shining, while he's doing the Overlook Hotel, oddly enough. And of course, we now know the payoff of this. Years and years later, Ready Player One.
Uh-huh.
So literally, like he kind of bumps into Kubrick on the Overlook set, just like in the lobby of the Overlook. They kind of meet and they kind of have a little conversation, kind of like an hour-long conversation. They become fast friends, and he invites Spielberg to dinner, and they become kind of famously buddies. He kind of is inducted into the kind of the director pals guild of Spielberg. And Spielberg at this point in time, sorry, let me rephrase that. Kubrick at this time, while he's meeting Spielberg, all the while, Kubrick is adapting this sci-fi story. He's adapting Super Toys Lost All Summer Long with the writer of the book, Brian Aldiss. Now he's adapting the source material with the author involved. So by 1985, he's asking Spielberg to direct because deep down he's trying to make a Spielberg movie, and he's hoping Spielberg will direct it. That's essentially what Kubrick is trying to do. He's trying to test his sensibilities and trying to get something for Spielberg. And basically, deep down, he wanted Spielberg's approval. And really, Spielberg, self-admittedly, he wanted just to produce the film because it was Kubrick's baby. It's like, again, it's like Spielberg didn't want to, but how could he turn down Kubrick asking him to direct the movie? That's kind of what it is. He was really being polite about it. And again, he befriended him. So again, obviously, he said yes, but again, always saying throughout the thing, like, it sounds like you really have your heart set on this because again, Kubrick had many, many ideas that again he did all the legwork creatively for the worldview and everything. And the story was his baby, and he started the ball rolling. Well, again, this kind of fits into the Ready Player One thing. It's not something that Spielberg brought to the table.
So, yeah, it is an interesting counterpoint to Ready Player One for sure.
So again, like Kubrick had all mapped out in his head, and basically was on and off again in kind of development heck for many years. That's kind of the story. That's the gist of the story for the development process. Like basically from '85 to '89, it's again Spielberg's like involved, but then again when the movie's off, Spielberg's working on other things. So it kind of goes back and forth like that. So Spielberg's just kind of chiming in and out while the movie is in production. So Kubrick, all the while, like he's doing his Kubrickian things, where he's famously Kubrick can be hard or scary to work for, because Kubrick basically the Kubrick method kind of ended up with him firing the author, and he actually hired the author. He hired the author's arch rival to write the movie. Apparently, he had
that sounds very Kubrick.
He hired Ian Watson to write the film, and eventually Spielberg would kind of do another pass on as well. So the point being, like Ian Watson, Spielberg ended up writing the majority of it. But again, he fired the original author because it's so hard to work for Kubrick. And let's see, Spielberg. Fun fact. So this is the big intersect between Kubrick and Spielberg during the on-off again phase. So like around the '90s, Kubrick was actually working on his own version of a Schindler's List type movie. It was going to be like another Holocaust set movie that was going to be kind of revolutionary for the time. Again, like when we don't really do Holocaust movies. And basically he learned that Spielberg was doing Schindler's List, and he kind of stopped the production on that because I don't know if it's fully out of respect, just because Spielberg's doing it right, so why am I doing it? And basically the problem is like Spielberg, when you're doing a Holocaust movie, you really get into it. I mean, there's an emotional toll when you make that movie, and like Kubrick had severe depression after kind of shutting down that production. Because the end of the actors cast, the whole thing was about to get made. Wartime Lies, it's called. So basically, the big reason there was a huge kind of almost James Cameron-like production hold on the movie was that 1991, by the time they're really doing this, the biggest problem was David. See, Kubrick wanted David not to be a real actor. He wanted him to be CG or an animatronic actor.
Really? Oh man.
That was the biggest problem. It's kind of like Cameron waiting, as he says, at least. I don't know how much he really
I
means.
mean, nowadays, like the
Mm-hmm.
motion capture thing is totally feasible, but
And just pre-Alita.
yeah, yeah.
And that's the thing. It's because, so basically, the movie really gets put on hold in '91 because just the effects are not there to really kind of have like a fully CG or robotic character at that time. And it's even pre Toy Story, right? '91. So Spielberg,
Yeah, it's pretty much pre everything.
and the main reason he wanted like a non-human, a non-kid actor is because the Kubrick's problem is that he takes forever to make his movies, and any kid would age out if he were making movies. It's not like animation where you can get a sound alike. He has to have like a live kid actor. It has to be the same kid actor. So that was the main crux of the problem. That's why he really doubled down like kind of a
They
non.
should have literally done like a Boyhood thing where part of the premise is that the robot ages.
Yeah.
But then
So
again, that would kind of ruin the ending, so
the idea is the thing gets shelved until Jurassic Park comes out. Jurassic Park comes out, and that kind of is again kind of the effects marvel that is Jurassic Park, and yet again linked to Spielberg that kind of reignites the flame. So like the year after Jurassic Park, things are kind of back in production. Spielberg and Kubrick are corresponding via fax. There's this famous story where Kubrick's all secretive and everything, where he tells him to put a fax machine in the safest room in his house, which is his bedroom, and like he'll fax him all the details, and he has to read the details, then shred and then burn it if the shredder isn't working. It's like it's real lock and key type stuff. And at this point in time, he lasted for in the bedroom for like 3 days because he was faxing at all hours of the morning, like 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. His wife put it in the living room or someplace because it's just the point is it's very that's Kubrick for you. So unfortunately, Kubrick he passes away a few years after that. Kubrick passes away, and Spielberg was in disbelief until Nicole Kidman called him and broke the news to him because he thought it was like a death hoax of like, oh, they're saying the celebrity died when that's not the case until he kind of found out the hard way through Nicole Kidman again, the last movie Kubrick made with Eyes Wide Shut. So so Spielberg gets he talks to I believe it's Christine Stanley's wife, and she asked him to kind of pass the torch and kind of like finish the movie for him. And kind of finish Kubrick's last work, the last big project. The two of them worked together. They kind of searched the Kubrick premises for all the notes and all the archives and like every piece of art and every note that Kubrick ever made, so they can get like as much of Kubrick's vision into the movie as possible. And Spielberg, and this correlates to some other stuff we've done, Tiki. He called Tom Cruise to put Minority Report on hold because he was going to make Minority Report this time. They had to put it on hold for a year. And like Tom Cruise is very understanding and everything. Oh yeah, I totally understand, man. They could do the movie. We'll do Minority Report a year later. And basically, the last thing I have here is the movie. Essentially, AI was pitched like this by the two of them to the studio. It was pitched as Blade Runner meets Field of Dreams.
well, I can definitely see the Blade Runner for sure.
I think that just those two in comparison with each other, I think says it all when you really, at the end of the day, that's kind of what it says about AI.
And Field of Dreams, Dragon, believe it or not, I've never seen Field of Dreams. Is that like a bad thing? I don't know. Is it like a?
Well, I'm not going to begrudge you, but I mean, it is kind of famous, It's like,
I know it's famous. I haven't seen. You know me. I haven't seen every famous movie.
hey, I don't blame you. All right.
Anyways,
Point being, I think those two movies, in contrast to each other, kind of says what AI turns out to be at the end of the day. Though I think it's a proper kind of sell for the movie, honestly.
right.
All right, so of course, folks are doing a commentary here, which means we're not going to be able to really pay attention to the comments, assuming there are some for this. Fact of the matter is, we're just going to be really kind of glued to the screen here. We're watching this on Netflix. If you want to link up with us, basically, there's Netflix. I believe it's on Amazon as well, but we're doing it via Netflix, and of course, just again, we're going to try to go as kind of chronologically as we
Dragon,
can.
I honestly think that this one is going to be one that people can listen to, and they really don't need to have the movie up because, yeah, we're going to go chronological, but there's a lot of interesting discussion points with this.
Exactly. So yeah, hopefully it'll go like kind of in a linear fashion, but we'll try to keep it linear at the very least. So hopefully you can just kind of listen along, but we'll see how it turns out. Okay, and of course we do this lethal weapon style. So when Tiki says you go 1, 2, 3, go, when he says go, that's when you press play at the 000 mark. So yeah.
All right. So without further ado, let's get into it. AI, artificial intelligence, in 1, 2, 3. Go. God bless our souls.
So real quick, just with the title AI, I just wanted to mention. I heard this sounds too ridiculous to be true, but I don't know. It's the fact that they had to
A
add
lot of people
artificial.
love that steak sauce dragon.
That's the thing. That's the thing is they were worried it was going to come across as A1 instead of AI. That's why they added the artificial intelligence. That sounds made up. I don't know. Stranger in fiction, one could say.
So I want to speak to the marketing because I remember the marketing, like the teaser trailer had it was a very cryptic trailer where it had Monica reading the words that that did the sync up or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the words like kind of like flashed upon the screen, and we're just like, ooh, like what is this? This is very interesting.
Would have been excellent marketing for Winter Soldier.
Oh God, yeah, it does remind me of the marketing for Winter Soldier for sure. Okay, so what do you think of this first scene that we have? It's a great kind of horrific opening money shot of not, it doesn't come right away, but the big reveal of when the guy opens up the robot lady, opens up her mouth and it's all the machine. We see all the mechanisms. I think that's a really good kind of it really gets us into the world.
Well, before we get into that point, Tiki, I mean, again, we have like a full circle visual at the start of this thing. We're surrounded by water. We're kind of setting up the status quo with the idea that the polar ice caps melted, and we have, I believe, Ben Kingsley doing the narration. So again, we are foreshadowing a number of things here, even with the visual here. We have these kind of obscured beings that are kind of very representative of kind of where the ending of the film kind of goes to. I think again, it's kind of a nice circular ending. We kind of foreshadow with the opening here. It's kind of surrounded by kind of buried in water, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I got to tell you, just with the sell of this in kind of a science fiction setting, just the idea of like this whole population control via just kind of limiting the amount of births and just kind of having robotics as a solution. That is kind of interesting as a premise.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think that this really Dragon Alita is kind of like this movie fully realized at the end of the day. It's because Alita explores these same concepts but does them in a much more kind of cheerful way while still being serious about its subject matter. It's just all around better. But so here we go.
Yeah.
This is the moment that kind of stuck with me as a kid. Like, the moment of like, oh boy, like this is what we're in for. And that's the thing, Dragon. I love how in the movie, in the character design and everything, this is one of my favorite parts. They don't shy away from like the ugliness, like the cold inhumanity of these machines. You know what I mean?
Yeah, two things. I mean, I don't know. I think this speaks to some of the tone issues in the first act here, where Sheila here, like the one she gets the jarringness of which she's kind of stabbed in the hand with like the pinprick, and then of course like she's undressing like she's beginning to undress for some reason. I don't know. It feels really feels like a little off in that start there, whereas we're kind of dehumanizing them in kind of an odd way. Right at the start.
Well, I mean, the whole movie is about dehumanizing the robots, though. That's the thing. So
it is, but I mean, like, just the way that the way that unfolds, it just stabs her in the hand, just again without. But you're right, it's dehumanizing, though. I don't know.
Okay, let's face it. This is not a subtle movie at all. So it's
I'm saying that sets the unsubtle tone right there. Is what I'm saying.
Right, but I'm saying at least it is a tone that is set that they are consistent with, is the fact that this movie is unsubtle throughout.
Real quick, I want to talk about William Hurt here. So we have Professor Hobby. Now, by the way, Professor Hobby, as his name, is a little nod to Kubrick. Kubrick had a production company called Hobby Films that he used in all his movies.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that Spielberg lighting all throughout this opening scene. By the way, there's that bright Spielberg kind of like it's kind of like the kind of the classroom scenes in Indiana Jones almost. Well, mainly it feels more Minority Report's the better comparison, if I'm being frank. Again, it's that sci-fi lighting that Spielberg really loved. I do love the effect though when like her face did open up there and we kind of saw the exoskeleton of the underskeleton of the mecha. It's really good. The synthetic, I believe.
Yeah, and it's like I feel like the effects in this movie almost, it's kind of got like that Jurassic Park quality where they almost hold up better than today's effects because it's a good blend of the two. Not everything is like a wash of CGI. You know, when they use CGI, it does stand out and you know it's CGI, but I feel like it's blended into the environment a lot more. And of course, that is because this is a much more subtle movie than, you know, than something like, let's say, Godzilla King of the Monsters, for example. And I'm not saying that movie has bad effects by any means, but I don't know. I do like the subtle nature in which this film kind of slowly unravels the world.
So I think here's the thing. I like what this again. I like what we're going for here, and basically the premise of like robots. Our premise here. Yeah, I think it's a little clunky phrasing that Hobby's going for here. Where I think what he's trying to ask is if love is programmed, can it ever be genuine? I think that's what he's trying to say, but I think he's just trying to speechify a little bit to win the crowd. And I feel that I think it gets a little lost in translation there. I feel that's a little off.
Yeah, honestly, Dragon, the whole like robot that can love element of this movie, I feel like it's super freaking hokey.
I mean, again, it's an interesting question, but it comes off hokey in the way they phrase it in the movie.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll get into it, but I think one of the biggest flaws of this movie is how repetitive and on the nose that whole Pinocchio allegory is. It just really drags the movie down in some spots where it's like, all right, I get it, real boy, shut the fuck up.
I mean, what I'm saying is, like, this lady here posing the question to him really doesn't make any sense the way she's phrasing it. It's just like you have to really interpret it. I feel it's a big problem. Your whole crux of the movie kind of hinges on this question, you know?
Uh-huh.
Also, again, I think the interesting thing we're not really touching on that much here, and I feel that again we need the occasion for story. I understand, but the bigger implication is that in a world of population control, we're basically suggesting another route of adoption through kind of mecha children. Which that's an interesting idea. That really is that you could adopt kind of the most lifelike kind of next gen automaton in the form of a child. That is an interesting question. But again, I feel basically we picked like the worst family to try it out on in the movie. You know.
Yeah, these people are jackasses.
I do like Monica though. I gotta be honest.
Really? I think I mean, it's.
Very least, I think she grows on you. I don't know.
I don't know, man. I mean, it's.
Henry's the real problem. Let's be honest. Also, one of the
I think the real problem is the most compelling part of this subplot, which is the son.
He's the problem too. I'm saying Henry has some on a rewatch. Henry really doesn't hold up, and we'll get there when we get there.
Especially because he's the one who pushes David on her.
That's what I'm saying. It really makes
no major problem with him. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so real quick, I do like the futuristic design on a few things here. Like we had the three-wheel vehicle in the future that looked really cool. And also, so this is kind of cool foreshadowing here with the idea of like a frozen child, which of course is kind of David's fate by the end of the movie here. And the idea of kind of essentially a story being basically the idea of a child. By the way, it's kind of amazing that again I'm not faulting the movie for this. I'm just kind of raising the point that it's still in life today. We still haven't figured out cryonics. In the way they're kind of putting it out in movies, we've still never made a major strides in cryonics.
You never know. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes.
So what I'm getting is this kind of foreshadows David's fate. He's coming back. He's in a state of isolation driven by a mother's love for the child, which again is kind of what we had here with her reading to her, kind of suspended a child. So again, it's the idea of like the sounds fueling hope for that connection. The idea of if you could hear anything's passing through that mind in stasis could kind of give you a sense of love. So I think we're really foreshadowing the greater ideas for the ending of the movie. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from my understanding, cryonics in real life, it's basically the reason cryonics aren't as simple as like what we see in like everyday things like like a Mr. Freeze type story. I think the main reason, like the actual science, I read an article here somewhere. Again, I'm not the authority on this by any stretch, but here it's like bringing them out is the main problem. It's not so much freezing them, and I think the trickier thing we never highlight in movie because it's really convoluted. If you really think about it, like people usually have to be dead, and it has to be kind of a revival stage put into actual cryonics. And of course, it's something we kind of saw played with on Gotham a little bit, where she would actually have to.
Yeah.
The point being, cryonics is not as simple as like just kind of like thaw them out. There's a lot more attached to it there.
All right.
We do have some Kubrickian shots, especially in the opening here. With basically, you have like a lot of 14 millimeter kind of like when we get to the house specific. You can really see when we go to the house, like these shots where you just kind of like see the environment, just kind of see things play out all in one shot. You know, just kind of like a elongated kind of static shot, like the coffee stuff. All the stuff with that really cool coffee dispenser.
Mhm.
We'll get there when we get there. But our star approaches.
Yeah. So I do love the foreshadowing of like when we first see David, that silhouette does look like one of the weird aliens that we're gonna meet way on down the line.
Yeah, that's right. This is a real Kubrickian shot right here. And again, this is Spielberg trying to play with. Again, feels like Spielberg for the most part going outside of his usual wheelhouse again, trying to do something different, like those sorts of shots.
Oh yeah.
Also, so Haley Joel Osment, he was Spielberg. So again, of course, you're probably wondering, okay, so if Kubrick wanted to do like a non-real child, he wanted like kind of a fake kid. How do we get Haley Joel Osment? Well, Spielberg's first and only choice was Haley Joel Osment because he felt he was the only kid who could bring kind of do the performance for this kid. Kind of acting, basically bring a robotic performance. And again, whether that's positive, whether that's a compliment to him or not, I can't tell you. But no, I'm kidding. It's probably a compliment. Of course, like again, Postalita, we can.
Osment, I feel like he is incredibly unnerving and borderline unlikable throughout a majority of the movie, and I can't tell if that's intentional or not.
I'm sure it's I'm sure it's intentional.
I think the unnerving thing is I don't necessarily like. I feel like the likability I think is supposed to come from the Pinocchio stuff, and as we're gonna get into, the Pinocchio stuff just kind of becomes a drag as the movie goes on. So I think that's part of the problem.
So, well, that's the thing, Tiki. Again, intentionally, yes, but there's a question of like intentional isn't exactly a cure-all. I think it's still a problem that again, like he is off-putting. I think it's a problem when we want to invest in his journey going forward. I feel
right.
I don't buy that she hits that button because of the way he's playing it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, of course, like post-Alita, we can now do things Kubrick's way, but then.
I do like the shot of David reflected into the family portrait.
Yeah, this is really cool. Again, like the opening.
And honestly, Dragon, I feel like looking back on it, this first act, it did give me a lot of childhood trauma, for sure. But I feel like it's it's an excellent, if you look at it as a short film, honestly, I don't think any of the problems of the movie really start until the second act.
Well, it's funny you say that, Tiki. I'm gonna blow your mind here with something I'm getting the sense of here. So,
okay.
Act 1 and the very end, the infamous very end.
Yes.
That's all Kubrick.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
Oh, sorry. Well, then back to basically, again, let me rephrase it like this, too. So, again, it's not only is it Kubrick, basically the book that
and then also Dr. No is Kubrick, but we'll get into that.
Oh, you're right about that, too, sir. My point is that, more importantly, is that Act 1 of this movie, basically up until the point where David is with his mother and separated from his mother, all of that, basically when he's left in the woods later, that's the book. That's the book that he's adapting. That's the end of that story.
Okay, yeah, that is interesting because I do really feel like that story it's kind of like the Wall-E syndrome. You know what I mean? Although the rest of Wall-E is way better than the rest of this movie. I'll give it that. But it's like it's got that Wall-E thing going on where it's like I feel like with Wall-E, the setup act is kind of the most interesting thing that movie's got going for it.
So let me get into again. So I was referring to the flaw I kind of have with the first act here in terms of just kind of in terms of picking all families to give this kid to. So it's a tough ask for any mother to do that is why I think I have a lot of sympathy towards Monica in the movies. It's a tough ask for any mother to be put in this position here where she has to try to love another kid while her son, obviously, there's a hope that her son will come back from the cryonics. But it's unclear, and this is why I kind of linger on the cryonics, like the logistics of it, because it's unclear how they're playing it. Are they playing kind of like movie cryonics where it's just like, we don't know what's going to happen, or is it cryonics like again, we're trying to be like real life, where again, it's really, even if we could save him, it's a crapshoot. That's the thing. It's a question like how much it sounds basically. the biggest problem with Act One to me, and I know it's the story, but again, this is what was not in the original book too. All the stuff with the kid coming back, that's not from the original book, from what I understand.
Okay, and that's the thing, Dragon. The stuff with the kid coming back is the most disturbing stuff in Act One, and also the best stuff in Act One, I think.
Well, I mean, I might have to disagree with you a little bit on that, but I would agree. Basically, things
I
take a
think
turn.
it's the best stuff just because it's like it or not, it's the most. I mean, it's like he's basically like evil Freddy from Shazam. You know what I mean? It's like,
Okay, real quick. Here's the Kubrick coffee stuff I was talking about here. Man, I love this layout for the coffee and the tea and stuff.
uh-huh.
Sorry, I just want to bring that up. But
No, it's fine. Yeah.
This is 14 millimeter magic right here. But yeah, I mean, basically, up to that point, that's where we have the turn in Act One, where again you get a glimpse of where the story's going, but then we have sort of our quasi kind of Breaking Bad sort of turn, where it's like Walter White, he has a solution for all his problems, and it's like one of those moments where seemingly all of our problems are solved, and then well now we're kind of stuck with this now.
Right.
That's kind of what we do when the kid comes back, and again, that choice to me, again, I know it gives us occasion for story, but again, the way it kind of, I would argue, I think it hurts Act One fundamentally, but we'll get there when the kid.
Okay, interesting, because I thought on a rewatch it kind of helped Act One, so that'll be an interesting discussion point to have.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, what I like about it is just, I guess we'll get there when we get there.
So the imprint. Oh yeah, go on.
No, it's fine. Yeah. Let's talk. Is this the imprint right here?
No, not yet. I'm saying I'm just going to bring up some for when it happens a little momentarily. Just the imprinting idea is it's kind of set up where basically she has to she's in the middle of an adjustment period right now, and again, it's kind of a perverse concept that again parents don't often get. I mean, occasionally in cases of adoption, I suppose, or fosterhood, but again, it's like you're getting a chance. Like literally, if you hit imprint, that means there's no going back from that point. So she has to be sure about her decision. Again, putting a mother who again has the chance that her original son might come back. Again, we the audience are kind of led to believe that's a very long shot. It's probably never going to happen. I mean, I do like what we're going for with the montage here, but again, I think the biggest problem where we go with this, getting to the imprinting, is I'm not sure I buy that after all we see. We have a few moments here and there, but I don't think it's enough to really buy that she's imprinted on this.
I really don't. That's one of my big flaws with the whole movie, Dragon. Honestly, and that's
an important moment, right?
Dragon, that's the thing. That's why I don't buy Monica fundamentally as a character. Is just to me, it's like that's why she kind of rings false, and I feel like she is kind of selfish, and I don't necessarily have a lot of sympathy for her because I feel like she's taking this leap without really knowing what she's getting into, and it's like at the end of the day, like this kid does fucking freak her out. You know what I mean? We like right here, I found you. It's like why? I don't know.
Right now,
it's like you might. It's like a fucking pet with a really bad disease or something like that. It's like you might love it. It's like a pet that attacks other pets or something. I don't know. I
mean, this scene right here, we have the laughing scene right here, and this is what I'm talking about here in terms of what Joe Osment's doing. Where again, I get what they're going for. Where again, it's like we're trying to sell that again. He's a little off-putting, but again, when the whole movie hinges on that imprinting moment, that's a problem. Where I don't, it's hurting me buying that she's taking to this kid with moments like these. Where
Dragon, I if I was in this situation with this moment, like if I wasn't wanting to get this kid the fuck out of my house by this point, this would definitely be it. This would be the like, okay, get in the car, we're going back to the lab.
If I may coin the writings of Pixar here for a moment, I've learned from some of the best minds at Pixar from DVD commentaries, if I may. In Monsters, Inc., the old rule of thumb was, you can't have the audience laugh at something that you basically can't have characters laugh at something that the audience wouldn't find funny. That was kind of the rule of thumb for the way laughter worked in that movie. And I think this is a prime example of it here, where I don't find this funny, and we're just laughing like it's really funny.
Dragon, you know what? This scene might be the definitive like Spielberg whimsy clashing with Kubrickian disturbing thematic elements.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, that's again. It's again. This whole Act One specifically is Spielberg trying to direct his Kubrick. That's what a lot. I think.
Okay, the thing that bothers me is I don't get that Henry is charmed by this.
I think Henry's just putting on a show right now. If I'm being
You
frank.
think so? You think
I really
so?
do. I think he's just trying. Because literally, watch what happens here when they both kind of stop here. He's stopping because he just doesn't know what to do now.
Right.
Also, if you notice, Haley Joel Osment, he's been given a direction of not to blink. He kind of pulled an old Christopher Lloyd from Roger Rabbit here throughout the movie. He blinks in very specific moments. I think mainly towards the very end of the movie. He blinks very specifically, but again, for the most part, you won't see him blink throughout the large 80, let's say 85 to 90% of the movie. He doesn't blink.
Mm-hmm. So, they're talking about David going to sleep and how it's impossible for him to go to sleep. I wonder if this has any significance on the ending.
We have the DreamWorks crescent moon behind him.
You're right.
No, I do like visually what we're saying here. Again, these feel like kind of Kubrick shots here, where again we're kind of foreshadowing stuff. Where again, it's he's in somewhat of a stasis, like her son was, like Martin is right now. And of course, again, just kind of this tender moments, blue lighting. She's the blue fairy figure. You follow?
No, I don't think I follow, Dragon. You're going to have to lay it out more for me.
She's the.
Does it make sense, Kronk? Well, yeah, Tiki, I think it makes too much sense.
Yeah. This is the moment where Ian, she's kind of making she's making a hard decision any month, and this is where I'm basically, I feel this point onwards where I start to really like it. Before she's kind of playing like January Jones and Mad Men, where it's just like she's freaked out by the kid, she has no idea what to do. And now we're getting to the point where again she's forging a connection I can't really buy, but again after this point, this is kind of the performance I was looking for from her. I got to be honest. That's where I'm at on Frances O'Connor in this movie, because I do like her, but again at this point forward.
I guess I don't know.
I mean, it might just be me. I'm just saying. I don't know. I kind of again bear in mind again compared to where we go with Henry. I mean, it's not saying much, but I like her.
I mean, that to me, it's I feel like at least with Henry, he kind of reacts like how a normal person would react.
Yeah, but it was his stupid idea.
And I know it was his idea, and he was in over his head, but at least he sees the flaws in it.
Yeah, a little too late. After he's keeps saying imprint, man. It's the big choice. Again, a very kind of Winter Soldier idea here, where you read the specific phrases that kind of cue the mental state here.
Mm-hmm.
We need a paperclip. Rex, use your finger. Sorry.
Oh, God.
Anyway. I mean, again, this is what I think. I do like what Joe Osment does here, where he's just kind of playing the obsessive. He's just kind of playing the obsessive manufactured love at first here, where he just snaps into it here with the instant hug. So again, this really started to win points with me in the first act, and of course, again, I don't know. I don't think it's just. I don't know if it's just me or not. I don't know, because again, I might just be I might be the odd man out in just terms of what Act One's going for here. I'm liking when things are going well, and of course, Martin comes into play, and then we just kind of everything goes out the window.
Dragon, I don't know. I think you might be in the minority. Martin is the type of character where it's he's a little shit, but he's kind of like the Joffrey from Game of Thrones. He's kind of like a love to hate him little shit.
I know you're supposed to. I'd be shocked if you were supposed to like that kid. To put simply, but I suppose you're right.
Well, you're not supposed to like him, Dragon. You are supposed to hate him.
Yeah, I know. But by the way, a little fun fact here: if you look at Osment here, look at his arms and his head. They gave him kind of a waxy coating on it to basically look like fake skin. So that's why he has that shine.
I did kind of notice that. Yeah.
Yeah, that isn't. Again, they're trying to make him look as non-human as possible. Just without doing all the makeup effects when he has surgery later. Right. So again, I mean, we are flirting with the big question in the movie here about can love be genuine? Can a robot have genuine love, and vice versa? Can it be forged?
Here's the thing, Dragon. I don't necessarily know if that was the best idea to go with for the main crux of the movie. Like, I feel like the movie's got a really interesting world, and I feel like if the movie would have leaned more into the the dynamic, like kind of like the war going on between robots and humanity, and how how humanity kind of fucked itself with with the rise of AI. Like, there's a really ambitious sci-fi epic in there, you know what I mean? And then this whole like kind of like Spielbergian thought experiment of like, oh, but if a robot could love a human being, it's like that kind of drowns out a lot of the interesting world building.
I think the fact of the matter is, it's two movies, and then basically the one very loose. Again, I think we're trying to say something about that theme in Act One, but then it's a footnote in the other act. We're like, we just bring out, like, basically by the end, like, David, you could love the whole time. That's really what we do. Right. Where again, I think we're trying to say something about it here, and again, the idea, it's again because it just has an ending. Again, it's like, as you mentioned, it's a short film. It's the end of the short story. And we don't really know where we're going with that, because then we're jettisoned into basically a Pinocchio movie after that. It really becomes Spielberg's take on like kind of a sci-fi Pinocchio Act 2 onward.
Have we introduced Teddy yet?
No, not yet.
I'm kind of surprised. I didn't realize it took us this long to get to him.
Because right now the idea is he's being clingy, and they want to give him someone when he's alone with. That's why we're building up Teddy right now.
Sure.
I don't know. I think she's trying to approach it kind of gently here with the kid. Again, this kind of broaching a dark topic of kind of death and mortality with him, which will bring in Teddy here as like a companion that will hopefully live as long as he can.
And Teddy, I think, is probably the. Would you agree with me, Dragon, that he might be the most well-realized concept in the movie from front to bottom?
Quite possibly, yeah.
We'll get to that when we.
Oh, so there is a fan theory. I think it's there's fan theory about why Henry's so kind of the way he is here is that David never imprinted on Henry. He only imprinted on the mother. That kind of says something about Henry, not again also the Spielberg daddy issues a little bit there.
Oh God, yes. I'm surprised it's taken us this long to bring it up. Henry is Spielberg daddy issues personified, man.
Again, the literal fact that he doesn't imprint on Henry, right. And again, specifically, Henry didn't go to imprint on the kid either, as far as we can see. So it's a foregone conclusion. Again, Henry's having it's very out of character second thoughts. Where again, he brought this idea to the forefront. She's on board now. That all feels like we need. It feels like we just need him to be we need someone to be the devil's advocate for the matter of David, and we need like kind of that voice of reason. Where again, the big problem is that he doesn't fit what we laid out for him though.
Right, I hear you.
Speaking of Teddy, so Teddy actually is a Toy Story Connect. Teddy is voiced Teddy is voiced by Jack Angel. Now Jack Angel voiced Rocky Gibraltar from Toy Story. Remember the one the biggest moment Rocky had was Rocky, lower the ramp when they're
yeah.
He was the guy with the big blue kind of flat top hair. That's Jack Angel does tons of voice work. He's basically Jack Angel in the voice acting community. He's like every small character that you have. He might be in almost every Pixar movie as a small character, at least for a majority of them. It's like
John Roethlisberger is just kind of like, watch it, fella.
Seriously, in every animated film, especially in every animated film, you have like this category called additional voices, and he's one of the additional voices.
Right.
God knows how many movies.
Oh yeah, well I was in Cheers.
And also the main big role I know him from, aside from Toy Story, is he was in Spider-Man the animated series. He played Nick Fury in that for like there's like one, maybe two Nick Fury episodes, and he voiced Nick Fury in that. Okay. This is kind of
the voice emulator. What do you think of this?
I think here's the thing. I think this is like a cute gag, but then it turns all tonally. Then it gets all serious.
Again, it's kind of like it's another like Spielbergian whimsy meets Kubrickian abrasive harshness.
It's a really cute gag where they're bonding, and it's like, oh, he's doing the phone thing, oh, they're friendly and stuff. But again, it's the severity of like big news on the phone.
This movie is like a fucking. It's like riding the Matterhorn at Disneyland. It's a fun roller coaster, but it's bumpy as hell.
Again, I don't know. On the rewatch, I make the argument that there is some tonal stuff like here and there in the next two acts, but I think all of that tonal stuff is really in Act 1. I got to be honest.
Well, I just maybe it's just because I just feel like genuinely Act One is like the the most the creepiest act, and I feel
Yeah.
like once we get into basically Dragon, as you can kind of tell, I really wasn't a big fan of the Pinocchio shit in this movie. I really don't think it holds up
I think you and
well.
I are kind of on the opposite side of things on that one because
Really,
I like the movie Spielberg's making. I'm not crazy about the movie that he's making
I
with
like
Paul
the movie
Kubrick.
that Spielberg's making, and I'm really not crazy about the movie that Spielberg's making. Dragon,
Well,
this
yeah.
is fascinating. I'm so glad this kind of redeems the whole like us dreading doing the commentary because I like when we're on two different sides of things. So this should be an interesting discussion.
So we have Martin here. Martin being introduced. So Martin
It's
is
Evil Freddy.
look. He's got roadie legs. Oh my God! It's now. Oh, you're right. It is Evil Freddy. I just now
It's
put it
Evil
together
Freddy.
with the braces. Oh my God!
Yeah,
Yeah, you're
yeah.
right.
It's like imagine if instead of being like the supportive foster brother to Billy Batson, Freddy was just like a horrific, like sociopathic bully that did terrible things.
Oh, this bit's adorable here with Teddy here. We're just like, mommy, mommy. He runs away and just carries him up. It's adorable.
All right, so yeah, Freddy is just a little
He's an
shitster.
a-hole. Martin's a little. Well, remember, don't call him for his name's not
I'm
actually
sorry,
Martin.
I'm sorry. That was literally a slip. My bad. Yeah, Martin.
Yeah. And again, honestly, this is also a lot of this feels like a Black Mirror blueprint. I think the most modern Act One feels very much like what we're doing with Black Mirror today on Netflix. You know?
Yeah, maybe that's part of the reason why I don't really care for Black Mirror.
Maybe. I do like the cool motorized legs of the future, though. I got to be honest, it's kind of cool looking.
Well, that's the thing, Dragon. I like practically everything about the future stuff in this movie.
Yeah, all basically, I love the future stuff, with the exception of again, not because it's bad, just because it's like the one inaccuracy I feel that we can get away with everything else, but the Robin Williams scene later on.
Oh God, yeah. So like, you and I we don't agree with a lot in this movie, but we agree on that.
Yeah.
You see, David, in the future, knowledge is going to be the most important thing because Google is never going to exist.
So I guess the idea is that Martin right now he's seeing he's seeing David as a toy. That's really his only rationale for Louise. He's seeing him as a toy before he's a brother, and basically the way he treats his toys, presumably, is going to be like Sid.
It's more Sid than Andy, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, so basically my experience watching this thing, as a 10-year-old was just like, oh God, oh no, like what horrific thing is Martin going to make David do next? It was like a roller coaster of just like bad situations that David gets into. And I gotta tell you, Dragon, I think it's just maybe the fact that I'm a horror fan and you're not. I kind of dig it as an adult because it does have this impending sense of dread all the way through it.
Real quick, I want to mention I love this logo bit here, where like the first thing I love this thing we do in sci-fi a lot when we have like kind of robots, kind of like we're playing with kind of robots and humanity and those types of stories here. Where you have like the quantifiers of humanity. Like, do you have a birthday? What was the first thing you remember seeing? In this case, he remembers the logo. I thought the logo thing was like a really cool bit in the writing, and like again, it's a bit of a Blue Fairy connect here, where again he's making in a blue crayon the symbol.
Oh, what's that? The movie's trying to be Pinocchio? It's trying to make a connection between Pinocchio and robots? Really? I didn't know that, Dragon. Go on.
God, yeah. Really,
I'm sorry. This is what it's going to be like, Dragon. I'm
going to get into it now because you're bringing it up. Right,
okay, get into it.
Real quick.
On air like that one producer called out Harloff, my friend.
Because real quick, I wanted to bring up that, did you know that, remember I told you like the writer's arch enemy wrote this movie?
Yes.
The original writer, Brian Knowles, after Kubrick's casting, when Spielberg was making the movie, he begged him because he knew that the main thing really irked him to no one was to find out that he was basically.
I'm sorry, really quick. It'd be like if Dean Koontz wrote The Shining.
Well, Ian Watson, Ian Watson was the whole. He came up with the Pinocchio idea. That was Ian Watson, the arch enemy writer, came up with Pinocchio. And basically, the original writer, after Kubrick's passing, he called Spielberg, or like got in touch with Spielberg. He begged him, pleaded with him not to do the Pinocchio stuff. Because again, none of that was in the original story, and he begged him not to do this Pinocchio stuff. And Spielberg says, "Look, again, most likely, I'm sure Spielberg did it in a charming manner." He said, "Well, look, and I got to honor Stanley's work here, man."
Yeah.
That's essentially that's where it went.
God.
And this, of course, basically the blue fairy thing was up in the air and question. I mean, literally, they're reading from Pinocchio, the storybook, which I haven't really seen that since Aquaman. I gotta be honest, we actually have the Pinocchio book in a movie.
Right.
We're really spelling it. Look. I don't have a problem with it, but we are laying it on thick. I won't lie. We are.
My problem with it is the repetition, my friend. Especially as we get into Act 2, they drive the point in so much that it just becomes tiresome.
You're not wrong. It is there a lot, and again, I don't think Osmond's really helping out with that. This is a really creepy scene.
My favorite scene in Act 1, believe it or not.
Okay, this scene really is creepy to me.
That's why I like it so much, Dragon. This scene is disturbing as all hell, and I love it.
I do want to point out here's why I'm really harsh on Martin. And I do have a question to raise to you, Tiki. I wonder if Martin was genuinely. I wonder because Martin, he's always like trying to quote unquote befriend David, and really just trying to get him in trouble. That whole runner with Martin.
Oh no, Martin is absolutely like an evil fucking like little shit. I know
that. What I'm asking is, it makes me wonder after rewatching it. It makes me wonder if Martin was genuine, and then eventually would lead to David's removal. Basically, things would happen, and like David would do the thing at the pool just out of a reflex, and this would kind of cause some genuine questions. If we didn't have all the other stuff, like the more sinister element to Martin, if Martin was just genuine, like kind of coming to grips with this kid, and then of course like something happens and David's kind of stripped away from him. Would it have been a little bit more compelling, or would it
I like where you're going with this, Dragon. That is a good question.
Like basically, we parallel the Lilo and Stitch moment, where again, like Stitch is dragging Lilo down.
Right. Good call. Good pull.
And that's what I'm asking. You think that would have helped or would have hindered? Like, would it have just been cliche, or would it have not? Would it have just been like what is more cliche? Like not traveling down the path or going down.
Would have helped if they would have still wrote it as like is Martin like still struggling and like definitely having reservations about it. I like where you're going with this, Dragon. I like where your head's at.
It's a real quick two things. Okay, one, we're pulling kind of the Iron Man trick here, where Haley Joel Osment, he's standing on or kind of laying down beneath the table, and we have a kind of a fake chest out there to do all this kind of creepy robotic surgery stuff. Also, when his face was melting, that was a huge moment for Kubrick. Kubrick wanted he basically. They really tried to go for an animatronic David that would have a melting face. He really tried to strive. That was the main effect they tried to get going for many years, and it ended up where again they had to use the real actor. They just could never get the animatronic melting face looking right. When basically he eats food. And I gotta be honest, though, really, if they're gonna have that again, seems like a big design flaw in the Mecha Kid, where really we can't we can't convert like biofuel or something. We're just gonna bear in mind. I know it's not a problem because they addressed that he would just pretend to eat food, but it'd be kind of glaring though. They wouldn't just compensate for that at all. They couldn't just have like a converter in the future. I don't know. Make it freaking vegetable oil.
That is one of the big things that I feel like this movie doesn't really hold up with in terms of future tech is that. I feel like artistically the vision of the future is, as the trailer says, it's uncompromising. But I do think that there's some elements of the future that they just kind of like overlooked in terms of like convenience. And again, Dragon, we are literally living in the future from when this movie came out.
According to Back to the Future, we've passed the future at this point.
Well, I don't know. Does this movie have a year on it?
Well, it does. I believe it's 2140. I guess 2140 something. It's
Okay, so that's the thing. It's not like a 2015 situation where 2015, that's a little bit more of a fantastical like Star Wars style. Like this isn't even supposed to be taken seriously as like hard sci-fi here. It's just we're having fun with the future. This is more like Dragon, think about it. Think about it. Like, in 20 years, look at how much the internet has evolved. Look at how much smartphones have evolved. Like, look at how much, CGI has evolved for better or for worse.
Yep.
That's just 20 years, right? Like from 2000 to 2020, let's say, to 2000 to 2019. Like, we're saying, like, this is like a century into the future, like a century and a half into the future. Like, I am not buying that these modern day, like what you're laying out. I'm sorry, I'm spending way too much of a point on this, but
yeah.
I am not buying the whole, like, the modern day convenience. Anyways, the hair thing.
All right. Okay. Well, real quick. No, go on with the hair thing. Yeah. Let's. Yeah. This scene. This is really eerily shot. And this feels.
Why did you do that? Why did you say that name?
I think Henry's just not taken to the situation well at all. So I think the bigger question, basically what motivates this is Martin being a little jerk. He's just being like the utmost worst there. Which is basically baiting David into doing something really bad that's going to get him perceived as kind of an evil, basically a robot gone rogue. Essentially, is what he's going for there. It's just basically jealousy and pettiness and sabotage. And I think the bigger question that we might be trying to raise here is basically innocence from a lack of humanity and like many faults. It's like basically we're seeing we have David being our innocent, right? David's our innocent in all this. Again, it's just trying again questioning like can he love or can he not love? The point being he's an innocent in all this. We have the innocent robot and we have humanity being represented by people who are through Martin as the kid comparison. He's just jealous, he's petty, and he's just trying to sabotage him just because he's different, just because he's not us. Again, it's kind of like what we do in all sorts of kind of way throughout human history. We've always just kind of seen people who are essentially the same as us, but we always look at that one difference, and we just dig it deep and we make it really hurtful,
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is what I'm talking about. This is where I'm liking Monica here. Again, Monica, she's again, it's a mother coming to love another child there. Where again, she's looking past. Again, it's the idea. Like Jonathan Banks, I think, said it best. Or it's like you have like mothers on the streets with kids doing really bad things.
Yeah, again, it's kind of like we're on two different sides of the coin here, Dragon. Because to me, honestly, I don't care how the situation. I don't care if David's in the wrong or not. But the whole, like, I cut mommy's hair because I wanted mommy to love me more. Dragon, that's another back to the factory moment for me.
Okay. I won't.
Like, all right, get in the car. All right, we're done here.
I won't disagree. I do blame that on bad writing, though. I don't. You're right about that, though. That
to love me.
I blame that entirely on.
Like, all right, God knows what else this kid is gonna fucking do.
Yeah, well, obviously, what should have happened is he just should have said, he told me to, cut the hair and everything, but he didn't.
Yeah, right. But
basically, the way it's edited, it's just there were no follow-up questions, and that's a flaw. Right? Okay, here we go. Here's the pool scene. This is
okay, ladies and gentlemen. I introduce to you the stuff of 10-year-old Tiki's nightmares.
I mean, the thing that really here's the thing on a rewatch. I think when he's in the pool, it's actually kind of a really artful shot that looks really cool. But up to that point, all this stuff, this is all creepy and horrifying. This always freaked me out when myself too. I didn't, not to the same level of you. I don't think this thing always made me uncomfortable. This whole, this whole like basically it's all really creepy and uncomfortable. They're trying to look at him and trying to look at his kind of private areas and everything, and they're trying to like stab him as like a defense mechanism. He says, "I'm not going to stab."
Scene, right? If you were to
well, that's the thing. I mean, okay, here's the big difference, Steve. So again, the brother, from what I understand, again, I haven't read the thing. I just haven't read the summations and everything. I don't think the brother was, and I don't think Martin was in the book, to my knowledge. I don't think he was. But what they had instead was he was jealous of the bear. He was jealous of Teddy.
What, David was jealous of Teddy?
Yes, David was jealous of Teddy, and that was the warning call, and I believe that's what got him sent.
Interesting, considering how close they are in the finished film.
And if I recall it right, basically it was they left it on an ambiguous note of like you don't know if he's going back to the factory or what. Basically, it looks like he's gonna. We don't know if he's gonna be destroyed or what, but he's heading on the path heading back to the factory. It's kind of a downer ending. Like this right here, this is what I was kind of speaking about the Lilo and Stitch comparison here. Again, if it was like a defense mechanism here, again, there's just like kind of it was a misunderstanding. Maybe not as on the nose, like I'm gonna harm them with a knife. Again, is there no parental supervision going on here? That's my big problem with it. Really, kids holding like cake knives, they're gonna cut each other. ridiculous.
Yeah.
And this is another thing too. I mean, Lilo and Stitch is one thing, okay, but this is another thing where literally all these guys jump in the pool and they don't just grab both kids. Let's kick the one down, you know. That's just, again, though, this is a really great shot that does.
Okay, Dragon, the one thing I will argue with about that is that you don't know how heavy David is.
I mean, come on. I mean, it can't be that heavy.
You don't know. You don't know.
You're right. We don't know, but I'd imagine.
I mean, I'm saying when it comes to a matter of like saving the kid's life, and they have to pry him out of David's arms, like I don't know. I'll defend that.
Okay, well, real quick,
I really like the shot right here.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, the whole like them walking away and like David just sitting in the pool, and that's all really well done.
Yes, and also they gave him scuba training for that, so the kid is actually down there. But they gave.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, I mean, look, I'd imagine for like user friendliness that again, if you want to pick up your new child, you'd want to make him light. That's my guess. That's my headcanon on that one. But you might be right. In fact, the whole eating thing, and so I don't know. Again, I do like the divide in that shot that just passed. That when the whole like when he was underwater, I do like the divide. Like they're all up there and he's just left alone in the water again, kind of cast aside.
That's what I'm saying. It definitely is a moment that kind of like you feel the emotions of what he's going through for sure.
And Spielberg water fear of water with Spielberg there, because again, it's sort of the
you better believe it.
Remember Minority Report, Tiki? Minority Report, the big pool scene in Minority Report, where again it's like parent losing child, big fear there. Just pools in these sci-fi Spielberg movies never go well. There's water scenes in general. And this is all kind of nice stuff here. She's reading the notes here. That's cutesy. But I like how Frances O'Connor just kind of plays again. Like I'm not writing wise, maybe not supported by the whole like the imprinting scene. So there's a flaw in it.
Whoa! Hold on, go back. I just noticed that we have in the note, it says like, I hate Teddy because he is not real like me.
And again, that's from the book, that stuff there.
Yeah, but holy shit, I never noticed that before, Dragon.
Oh, that's in there for sure, yeah.
Because to me, I always view Teddy as like David's like unequivocal like best friend. Like Teddy's like kind of the guy who's like sticking through David thick and thin. Like, damn, that actually kind of changes. Like, I wish they would have explored that more.
Yeah. You raise a good point.
Because even now, it's like, like he's like, and Teddy, yes, and Teddy, and it's like he's like, all right, Teddy, let's do it. Again, it's kind of like why would we even have that shot in the movie to begin with? If I feel like that's really the only point in the whole film is like a blink and you miss it moment that's not even dialogue about his dislike of Teddy. I just don't get it. That to me feels like almost like sloppy screenwriting. I
think I'm gonna give it this, Tiki. Again, I doubt. A part of me thinks this is what they're going for, but I can't prove it. I would imagine that that might have been something they wanted to kind of thread throughout the thing, where he's really touchy about the whole being real thing. Where of course we see that in the middle with the flesh fair, and of course when he beats the crap out of himself later on. So perhaps that's what they're going for, but again, we don't have enough detail. Barely in there. So okay, so this scene here, this is my argument for Frances O'Connor. Of course, I mean, if you're asking me who gives the best,
I mean, I'm not going to argue with you here, Dragon. This is probably the best. Like, I think the spinach scene is my favorite scene in this movie, but this scene might be objectively the best scene in the movie.
And again, this is a great kind of take for kind of take off of where the book ended here. Where again, it's kind of the ambiguous would have ended here, but we have kind of I gotta give it points here. Again, it's like this really. It's really gripping scene. It's a great performance and a flawed story. I'd kind of phrase it. It's like she's forged a bond with and gained a semblance of normalcy. When she needed it. And for that she's in debt to this kid. For that reason, she can't destroy him because when she needed him, he was there, and again he was subservient to her. And she made she made him subservient. Well, not subservient. She made him. Ingratiate and imprinted on him. That's all on her, and she has a responsibility to David, and that's her honor. It's a question of how much of it is that parental love, or how much of that is just like she kind of owes a debt to it, and she knows it's going to be destroyed, and that's not right to her.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's like abandoning your child to save him from death. Essentially, that's kind of what that's kind of what the story is.
I mean, honestly, Dragon, if I'm being completely honest with you, I think that given the context of like, this kid has like a love like for you that's going to go to the internal ends of the earth. I honestly think that turning him into the factory would be the more merciful thing to do. I really fucking do. Because because it's like, because at this point you are just totally like completely fucking with this kid's emotions, and it's like, at the very least, if you turn him into the factory, you're putting him out of his misery.
You're kind of like kind of an of mice and men sort of moment.
Exactly. Right.
Yep.
I don't know, but instead it's just kind of like, look, like, you're gonna live a shit life, and you're gonna be hunted. Oh, and also you're gonna have the emotional baggage that I literally programmed into you.
But it is kind of her character flaw. She can't let her. Last time she can't let her children die, and the last time she let that happen, of course, the other one came back and kind of complicated everything. So she just can't let her kids die. She can't let her kids go. And every time she does, something bad happens. I guess that would maybe been like her emotional anchor in her making her decision. And ultimately, her decision, what it does and what it achieves in David's story, is that this act of love does fuel David's journey. It's a heartbreaking scene, of course, but again, this fuels David's journey and going forward in the Pinocchio journey to essentially Pleasure Island is kind of eventually where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of have our Stromboli phase. We have a little bit of Stromboli, a little bit of Pleasure Island, goes all over the place. And I do love, again, what I love what she's doing here, like, the story's not real, just shouting it out to him. And of course, foreshadows, again, like, the question of what is reality? What is real to us? By the end, of course, is kind of the age old question with these types of stories, How do we deem, it's kind of like almost, I'm going to, cite Perchance the Dreams.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very curious to get your take on the ending once we get into it, because it's definitely like an Inception ending. It's definitely a did the top stop spinning ending.
Exactly. I mean, this right here, just again, like, it's almost like, get out of here, go on, get.
Oh, it's absolutely like that. Yeah, I never wanted you anyways.
Yep. And again, I just love the apology here. Like, I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the world. Again, she's
That's a good line. That's a very profound line.
Yep. Again, she's trying to get all the parental advice in there as much as she can. This is a great shot here when she's like in the rear view mirror. That's a great shot.
Uh-huh.
It's a great Spielberg shot right there. Well, it's kind of that's a proper mix of Kubrick and Spielberg.
Yeah. You're right.
Again, that's the end of Act 1. Her driving off, which essentially her driving
off.
That's
the thing, Dragon. This movie, like, for as inconsistent as the 3 acts are, they are very well defined, like where one act stops and another begins.
Then we have Gigolo Joe. Now, I'm very interested to see what your take on Gigolo Joe is.
Well, Dragon, I like Joe just because I feel like he is one of the most tonally comfortable things in the movie. It's like, after we get just the abrasively depressing Act 1, it's like, oh, okay, here's something different.
I really like Gigolo Joe. I really do.
My one flaw is that I don't necessarily like the whole murder frame-up subplot, because I feel like there's a lot of different ways that you could write around it. Like, wouldn't he have a database where you could look into his memories? Or
you're not wrong. I would argue this. I argue this. Okay, Gigolo Joe is in his own awesome noir movie, but we don't see that movie because he meets David. That's the thing. I like where the story with David goes, but with he and David, like, he and David meeting each other and pairing up all that stuff. But here's the thing: just before that, again, like Gigolo Joe, the movie of just Gigolo Joe, that to me feels like the movie Spielberg should have made, and I would have watched that movie.
He is definitely the most Blade Runner-esque part of the movie as well.
He is, and again, I think Jude Law is doing an excellent job with this character, and the way he's just playing. Again, he looks human, but again, he's like I love the little touches in the make, because he has prosthetic right now. He has that waxy look. But if you look, like, they gave him a fake chin, they gave him like some fake kind of enhancements to make him look more like almost like a Ken doll in the face. Like they give him these with that he's putting on a wig and everything. Again, he looks human from a distance, but up close you can kind of see that. Again, he's designed to be desirable.
Yep.
He's designed to be false. He's designed to be kind of the false stream man, as it were.
Of course, I feel like it's a little bit dated that we don't really mention him, getting with males.
Yeah, you're right. And I always assumed that when I watched it the first time, but I realized, like, oh yeah, right, they're not.
They literally never mention it. It's like it's like I feel like it's like, yeah, we're in a 2001 era movie.
I gotta be honest. When I think of like Jude Law in this sort of role in a sci-fi movie, again, Gattaca does come to mind a lot.
Oh man, Gattaca is an interesting. Like I equate Gattaca to like a movie where it's like it's definitely a classroom movie. Like it's a movie that you would put on in the classroom.
Yeah, that's why I watched it. Yeah, that's
Yeah, but it's a really good classroom movie.
yeah, it is. I love this, by the way. I love like the sing-songy name introductions.
Hi Joe, what do you know?
Gigolo Joe, what do you know?
That very much reminds me of Blade Runner as
Again,
well.
this is like the Blade Runner kind of future noir movie right here, where again, just
Yeah,
like, basically he's framed for murder. Again, I want to see that movie, but we don't do that movie at all. But also, I love everything. Honestly, like, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just kissing up the Jude Law here, but I love everything he's doing here. Where basically he's playing the way he moves. Like he has like a Fred Astaire. He literally played like a Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly quality with the way he moves. Again, this like every ways. Again, he's all pre-programmed with like ways to kind of woo people and just to be just. He's basically he's his whole purpose of being is to be a charming SOB, and he is.
Right.
So, by the way, the murderer coming up, and by the way, it's about. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but I love where he's. First of all, I love the little hand stuff too. By the way, he has like a mirror built in the hand, like a lot, like I love all the hand prosthetic kind of practical gags. Those are good. How he can change his appearance. This is where I live for. It's just kind of the gadget and kind of like
changing his appearance, the speakers that he has built in, so he can play romantic music.
Yes, I love every time he tilts his head. It's my favorite part of like, all the robotic things with him. Anyway, so I love this bit coming up here where again he doesn't recognize the blood initially, where he just like it's like great moment. I was wondering like, the first on the rewatch. It's been a while. I was wondering, is he not going to be able to tell that's blood because this is programming? Like the point being is, I just love how this is all. I don't know, I just love it. He's just kind of going into his usual thing, and then he realizes something's missing. In the beginning to a really awesome noir movie right here.
Yeah, I love that reveal. It's like the audience kind of sees the blood before he realizes it.
Yes. Okay. So this murderer here he's just coined murderer, by the way. He's actually a really good actor. He is, if I'm pronouncing his name right, Enrico Colantoni. Now, Enrico Colantoni, he's a great actor. In Travelers, which is a show I keep. If you want a really great sci-fi show, oh my goodness, The Travelers on Netflix is unfortunately got canceled before its time, but it's 3 seasons. It has an ending. Good news is it has an ending. It's not a huge cliffhanger. There was an opening for more seasons. Point being, season 2, he plays the big bad guy. This guy, murderer. He's wonderful. He's an excellent. I won't spoil out what his gimmick is. Steve, one of these days you got to check out The Travelers. It's only 12 episodes a season. It's really good. Anyway. Point being, murder here, yeah, a good actor for him. That's the short headline of it all. I'm in bad trouble. I love it's not just him saying I'm in bad trouble. I love everybody says in the future, you're in bad trouble. It's just they'll say that. Really good lighting.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and what do you think of the? Do you think that if we would have seeded Joe's storyline more, like if we would have seen him a little bit in the first act, like what do you think of the fact that this second main character in the movie doesn't come in until Act 2?
I think it's appropriate, honestly. I don't think he should have been in Act 1, in my opinion. I that's the thing. I mean, again, there is a tonal shift, and essentially, in essence, I think what they're going for, if you're using the Pinocchio parallel, I guess he's sort of the Jiminy Cricket, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, Teddy the Jiminy Cricket.
Right, actually, you're probably right. The point is, I'm not exactly sure what his role would be. The point being, he's the helpful character. He's like, I can't call him. I can't call him the the one who turns into the donkey.
Lampwick.
I can't call him Lampwick exactly, but he's kind of that role. He's kind of the other supporting character. But again, he's a little dubious in his program, but he's a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point being. I think they made a smart call, but again, it doesn't help. I think they went about it the best they could, but it doesn't quite help the fact that, again, Act 1 is like a short film within itself, and then we get into everything else, which feels like the movie feels like an actual Spielberg movie. Because, well, technically it is. So
okay, I got to admit, I like the flesh flare more than most people.
Yeah, I like parts of the flesh fair. I don't love it entirely, but I'm fine with it. It's okay. Okay.
Like, I hear a lot of people saying that that's where the movie goes downhill. To me, the movie doesn't really go downhill until Act 3. That's when the movie really starts to just come off the rails entirely.
Rango, that's when things get complicated.
But, I mean, this stuff right here, this body horror robot shit is great. I love this, like, you know, the taking the jaw lines, and it's really horrific and really well done, Dragon.
All right, so real quick, so some effects stuff here. So this is early blue screen, as in they're just painting
Uh-huh.
blue onto their skins, like these old school like big motion capture dots, not the fancy stuff we have today. That's how they're doing like the picture where they're putting like jaws on and everything, and like the.
But I think it looks better than some of the stuff we have today because it's more subtle.
And of course you have, and this is like an old school trick where you do in stunts a lot of the time, where you have like one-armed amputee actors, like people missing legs or missing arms, and that's how you have like people putting on the fake robot hands, an actual guy missing an arm. Yeah. Again, these are really solid. Again, these effects do hold up. They really do hold up. This guy put it in the eye. I love. What do you think about the moon thing?
I don't know. I think it's a little bit like it's not on the nose in the same way that Pinocchio's on the nose, but it's weird, man.
It is weird. I gotta give it. I think the moon itself looks cool.
I remember one of the big money shots in the marketing was that shot of Jude Law against the moon. Like, we have to travel towards the moon.
I think it's an impressive visual. Does it make a lot of sense? Like, why would they?
No, not at all.
Like, again, it feels impractical, but it looks cool. You know, it's just
yeah. All right, I love this call. This whole like any old iron. It's so, again, Dragon, I like the flesh fair more than most people. I do think that it's a creepy concept.
Let me tell you the problem with the flesh fair. Okay, the flesh fair just has one fundamental problem to me that, again, I can't complain about too much because we do pay. Here's the thing. On the first watch, especially, when I'm watching it, I'm thinking, well, I guess the rewatch after a while. My issue was we mentioned like the rumors of a robot civil war, and basically the way it plays until Gigolo Joe fills us in later on, like close to Act 3, we're missing information. Like, why exactly why are we so harsh on the robots? And I feel that kind of hurts the flesh fair. And that I don't know why all this is happening.
And that's what I'm saying, Dragon. I do wish that more of the movie did relate to the dynamic between humans and robots and why it's so strained. But
because if I'm filling in the blanks, it doesn't make sense until the movie actually gives me some information, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Like, I'm wondering, okay, well, you built them, and you, again, basically it's saying there's a population control with the AIs where they're going to die off, and it's like a design flaw in, like, in building them in the first place, where, again, that still doesn't make a lot of sense, where, again, they were, I don't know if that's just the irony they're going for there, where, again, like, they're going to stick around after. I know that's where the movie goes ultimately, but still, it just doesn't make much sense. Why would you be threatened by that? Again, these aren't like robots built for combat. These like servants and everything. Which, again, given where we're going with like David and Gigolo Joe, are like they're pretty top of the line mechas. You know, they're pretty and very humanoid, very just kind of like, you know, they serve a purpose. They're non-threatening. Again, David being most sophisticated of the bunch. I mean, the way they were going with it, like, logic would dictate, yeah, you get rid of the old models, but, you know, let's not do like a whole like savage fair of it all, you know. It's but again, like, there's the like, why are we so threatened by them when there's like an on-off switch is just will do the job, you know.
Yeah, but my argument though is that I just think in terms of just on a cinematic level, it's just cool and compelling. I mean, I totally agree with you that it logically doesn't make a ton of sense. I am totally with you, but I just think I think a lot of cool stuff comes out of it.
This whole scene, I did want to mention this with the moon and kind of with the sequence. It does feel very Brave Little Toaster Junkyard.
Oh God, yes.
I love this nanny lady. The nanny bot. She seems really friendly.
Yeah, she nothing bad is ever going to happen to her, Dragon.
Oh, surely not. No. The Mary Poppins of this movie. Who knows?
Oh God. What if the whole movie was just like about him like accepting like, oh, you're my real mommy, not Monica. I can learn to love you. Da, 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 da.
So I mean,
Climbing up on Salisbury Hill, I could hear the city lights. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So let's see. Basically, with they mentioned the Trenton incident later on. Like when we're at the Flesher, the idea of like, well, even I think even when they're looking for things up top, I forget where it's kind of the one they name dropped it here. They mentioned the Trenton incident where the idea is like humans were killed when they thought they were robots. And when you bring up a horrifying idea like that, basically it communicates like horrifying Salem witch trials are going on in the future. That's essentially the idea that they're communicating there. Where again, he's a robot. The Flesh Fair essentially is a more theatrical circus like Salem witch trial. Basically, it's like Stromboli meets the Salem witch trial meets kind of a circus. That's kind of what they're going for there. And it is effective. I will say it is effective, but it's still just again. Honestly, Tegan, this might, I want to make clear, this might just be my sensibilities. I'm not saying it's necessarily a problem with the movie, but for me personally, I have a thing with humanity where I call it the Invader Zim effect, where I have a problem when humanity is too unlikable. I know it may benefit the story, it may benefit like what the series Bible is going for, it may benefit what they're trying to say about the world. Like in Invader Zim, like we have our one character trying to rule the world, and there's people who don't care, and there's really savage, really basically people I don't like at all. My problem is I get what they're going for. That doesn't make me like them, and that makes it hard for me to kind of invest myself in the world. And again, these humans, until we get to the Big David movie.
Does that make When They See Us problematic for you out of curiosity?
I mean, again, there's that again, it's more rooted in real life versus again, I'm talking about when they're trying to manufacturing entertainment. That might, I don't know, we'll see.
Gotcha.
I haven't watched it yet. We'll see how it goes. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
But you see what I'm saying there, right? It's kind of the Invader Zim effect of just like sometimes if humanity's too unlikable, even if that's the intent, it kind of scares you off. It kind of makes it's kind of hard to identify. And then, like, even Wall-E had that problem. They tried to go away from humanity. They realized, no, we need like a likable humanity at the end of the day. And that's kind of what benefited that movie.
Well, I would argue that Wall-E would be a stronger film if it was just Wall-E and Eve all the way through.
Well, let me make I'll make the point that they're going to have aliens in Wall-E instead of humans, so they kind of divorce themselves from that. It was going to be like Jello aliens, and they moved to just make them big babies.
All right, I mean, look, like I said, I think you could have stretched Act 1 of Wall-E out into a film if you really wanted to.
I don't disagree, but I still like the way it turned. You're right, though. Act 1 is really
But I will say blobby aliens versus blobby humans. Yeah, I'll take the blobby humans.
That's what I'm saying. Oh, so by the way, with the comedian bot who's about to show up soon.
Oh my God!
They did offer it to Jerry Seinfeld, and reportedly they offered it to Jerry Seinfeld, and he turned them down. I don't know if it's for obvious reasons or not, but what's funny? Jerry Seinfeld and Chris Rock, basically the comedians, they do hang out, at the comedy clubs, behind the scenes, and they do mingle around. So I wonder if it's like, I think, well, we saw Chris Rock, let's offer it to him.
I more so think that it was just like, hey, who's a popular comedian in the 2000s?
Yep. I mean, that's also possibly the case. I'm just throwing it out there as like maybe consider the fact they do hang out. But
okay, I love some of the robots that we meet in this cage, and I think it's one of the most compelling parts of the movie.
Yeah, one of the robots, by the way, looks, I don't know if it's like a direct reference or not. Basically, he looks kind of a cross between Don Knotts, but we have like the cab driver. He's either a cab driver or like a milkman. I think it's a cab driver. He has the hat. Now that guy, oh God. Chris Rock. Oh God! I guess what you would call that, Tiki, is a roast of Chris Rock.
Oh God!
They should have played that during like the Chris Rock roast. If there does exist such a thing. Would have been like the final clip. When they roasted David Hasselhoff, they used the SpongeBob clip where he gets set on, he gets blown up.
Oh my God!
Anyway, so what was it going on about?
Good Hasselhoff.
Done. Anyway, so again, this is a likable example of humanity here with the little girl and the father. The little girl, you think it's her father later on. Anyway, so speaking of the robots here, we have like that Don Knotts looking guy who, again, he looks a little bit like Don Knotts, but who also really looks like, to me, he calls to mind, given that character was also a robot, he reminds me of the driver from Total Recall on Mars. Remember, like, he had like the driver's thing? Where are you heading? That guy.
Oh,
Looks almost identical to him. It's kind of that and maybe across the Don Knotts.
Okay, Dragon, I'm gonna get into like kind of the tier scale of like artificial intelligence stuff that we get. I would say the lowest tier for me, like there's three big ones. There's this one, there's Westworld, and there's Alita. Alita is obviously the best.
Yes.
Then I would say this one is in the middle. And then I would say Westworld is probably at the bottom just because Westworld is just so goddamn pretentious about it.
Look, if we're factoring in pretentiousness, this one is coming from a humble place. Again, they're trying to trade.
But what I'm saying is that I like the built-in history that we get with these robots, but we don't have the same sort of Westworld. Like, all right, now let's fucking stop the story, and we have to fucking take like a 10-minute fucking psychology course to understand what's going on.
Well, look, we're asking what's more direct and more readable than it's this movie, sure. But bear in mind, they have to base a whole series on. We have to follow them for basically kind of a part of an act. And really cool designs here, and just really one of them says I was the top of the line model. I used to be the top of the line model. Does that count for anything?
I really love the history that we have with these robots, and to me it's just like it's really kind of like economic visual storytelling that we have in place here.
Yep. I also just want to mention it yet again. I love Jude Law's costume too. It looks great. Again, this little girl I think is precious, and this is them just speaking to the bigger idea here of what are we saying? Again, this is where I think they're really hitting the proper note here. We're saying, look at what we're doing. The Salem witch trials kind of future we're in right now, and we're going to do this to a kid because he's a robot. We're gonna horrifically murder him in front of a cheering crowd. That's where we're at now in the future. And this is like dystopian future, like a bit of doing it through like a guy who is not sure what to think right now. I think that was a good moment.
Frankly, if I have one complaint about this moment, it's that like this guy seems a little too nice to be involved in the flesh fair at all.
Well, again, it's like so commonplace at that point. It's just it's earning a living, but it's not the fact. He's just seeing more like kind of like dismantling, very on the nose robot, kind of looking characters. Uh-huh. So again, it's really just kind of like it might be like it's just a living, or just more divorced from the humanity. He's never seen a robot like David before. Where now he's just kind of looking at the horror of this, like, oh god, plus it's a kid. Oh, this poor lamplight guy.
Oh god.
Man, that guy's got. It looks like it might be animatronic. I don't know 100%. I'm pretty sure he must be, but it just the way his legs and limbs are moving and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at just like the way he had like the carotid artery.
Hi, David.
This is sadistic what they do with this poor nanny.
Oh, it really is.
God. And of course, basically what they do to them here at the fair, I don't know if the movie would have to worry about this constraint, but again, I think it feeds into the old kind of broadcast standards and practices thing we bring up. I bring up all the time in animation, where the rule of thumb is, and even with Alita, all over Alita, the rule of thumb is you can do whatever you want to a robot. You can be as horrific as you want, so long as it's not human. And you can get away with it.
Right.
For the most part, you can get away with the PG rating. I think Alita was PG-13, but by the same token, technically, it's as long as it's not human. We'll get to some stuff in Batman one of these days. You're gonna see like how much they push it. Animators relish in killing things in animation, believe me. But again, the robots they get gleeful when they have robots because they can destroy them in all sorts of horrific manners.
Oh, here we go.
Dunk tank, man, that's just sadistic too.
Okay, that's one thing is that I feel like the crowd in the scene is like a little too like over the top, like inbred hillbilly WWE fans.
You know me, I'm not one for the inbred hillbilly crowd. Oh god, seeing her melted like that and smile. Oh god, it's horrible. What do you think about the handhold bit with the?
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a plot contrivance. It's like, all right, let's see. We need some way to get Jude Law involved in the plot.
I do like here's what I like about it, though. I do buy that again. It's kind of the meat. Again, I do love how these two characters contrast each other. They do kind of link up. Where again, like they're both love in a different sense. Him in the sense that we kind of explore in the early opening of the movie, and then we have David, who's again is in the sense of can someone programmed for love actually develop and feel actual love or humanity in that case. And the fact of the matter is, I love that again. This is kind of the where these two programs meet here, where again, like he's asking for human kindness, for love, and he's programmed to kind of like again for like human desperation and humans asking for love. He's answering his program, and that's the meeting point between these two, between programming and between kind of developing actual feelings. So it is kind of representative of an idea of the movie. So I mean, I kind of buy it. Just tossing out hot dogs while we're gonna watch murder unfold here. Just
Right.
also, this some people pointed this out, and I think it's accurate. There are some Astro Boy parallels to this scene here. Of course, so one of the famous scenes in Astro Boy is that one character that that Astro Boy befriends, who God, I can't remember the guy's name, but essentially he was a ringmaster for like essentially like the robot fights. And it was a big scene where again they all realized like we like Astro Boy. It was a big reveal that no, Astro Boy is he's not human, but we like him anyway. Always there's some big Astro Boy parallels, and of course later on with Hobbs too, like the whole like building your son. That's a big call to Astro Boy.
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think of the whole? I've heard this pointed out as a plot hole, where it's like, like, wait a minute, no AI has ever begged for their life before, and it's like, dude, literally every single AI that you're torturing is begging for their life.
Yeah, the comedian bot. Yeah, I mean,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I feel like that is kind of like a glaring plot hole.
It is. It is. Yeah, it's more about the bigger question here of like again, like we're killing kids now?
You mess with David, you mess with all of fucking New York.
All right. Speaking of New York, by the way, I'll save it for later.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a stupid line, by the way. I hate this line. He who is without sin cast the first stone. Oh, that's stupid. It's the dumbest line. I don't know. Even a Spielberg wrote that line. Come on, Spiel. Come on. Really? The dumbest on the nose line of the entire movie. Well, okay, maybe not on the. Oh, the point is, it's really stupid. Oh, he's hacky sacked to death here.
Right.
I think it's kind of nice to see things work out for David for a change. It's kind of nice. Now I believe when you say this kind of again, I guess when they kind of forged like the destination, I guess that would kind of take us into Act 3. So.
No, I don't necessarily view Act 3 as I view when they get to New York as Act 3.
Yeah, you're right. Because I mean, you gotta remember, because basically the way this movie works is we have an ending tacked on to an ending. One could say, so that kind of extends things. That kind of changes. Like that would kind of fill out kind of an Act 3 when we return to New York. So you're kind of, yeah. I guess you're right. Here's where we're doing the Astro Boy stuff here. Where we learn that We learned that Hobby has built David in the image of his own son, which is kind of I think it's kind of a neat idea.
And I like that it's definitely played a lot darker than it is in Astro Boy. It's like kind of taking a similar idea but doing something way different with it.
Have you ever seen the Astro Boy movie, the CG one?
No, I haven't.
It's really Tiki. You'd love it. Nick Cage is in. I think you'd love it.
Really?
Look, Clark Gregg. Coulson's in this movie.
Oh God!
I'm gonna point that out. Hey, two Marvel actors in the same scene. You got Coulson, Ross. Anyway, sorry. Fun facts aside, but yes, seriously, the Astro Boy, the animated one, it's a really underrated. Freddie Highmore plays Astro Boy.
Does he really?
Yes, he plays Astro Boy. You have Nathan Lane's in it. I'd highly recommend it because it breaches on the dark a little kind of it broaches. Well, I don't want to spoil it for you. Just trust me. I think I'm not saying it's a great movie, but I think it's worth checking out.
I do. Did you ever play, out of curiosity, Dragon, did you ever play Astro Boy the Omega Factor on the Game Boy Advance?
No, I didn't.
But like I never did either, but that's like a classic, like people cite that as like one of the best licensed games ever made.
Can speak to the wonderful parody of Astro Boy, though, with Hero Boy. Hero Boy, I must succeed! Freakazoid jokes aside here. This is where, again, this bond really is forged between David and Gigolo Joe. Which, by the way, a little thing with Gigolo Joe, I forgot to mention. Gigolo Joe originally, so Kubrick came up with Gigolo Joe in a different capacity. Originally, he was a kind of a GI Joe. He was literally like a militant. He was kind of a soldier.
Really?
Huh. He was a G. And the gag was going to be on GI Joe, but then Kubrick made the decision to. He made originally it was GI Joe, and I don't know if it was with the change of writer or whatnot, but he had the idea of like making Gigolo Joe, and they kind of left that with Spielberg to kind of.
I mean, like you already mentioned, Dragon, I think it really works as a gigolo because it's like kind of like the two different forms of love, like the physical love and the mental love.
Yeah,
emotional love, I should say.
And again, I love the charm in this scene here. Again, it's like these two characters that you wouldn't pair together. But again, he's talking about he knows. The kid's looking for the blue fairy. The kid is on a mission that is doomed to fail, but the other character simply doesn't know it. And he's just speaking to it in what he does know, and that he knows women. If blue fairy, she's female. Like I know how women work. We can help each other here. I'm sorry, I can't get enough the little head radio things. Like I love it so much.
It's really cool. It's a really cool detail.
This movie does scratch my gadget itch. It really does.
It kind of makes me wish we would have gotten a similar level of attention to the real building of like the AAs in Tomorrowland.
Yep. It would have been amazing if they could have pulled off like an entirely audio animatronic character for the whole
Dragon. I don't know. It's like with stuff like Hondo Inaka, it's like I feel like we're getting closer and closer to that.
You're right.
Almost becoming feasible. It's like I've heard from a lot of people that I haven't seen Hondo in person yet, but I've heard from a lot of people that when they got to that animatronic, they didn't even know it was an animatronic at first.
I mean, I gotta be honest, Tiki. I'm sorry, I was gonna kind of change. I mean, you're right about it. I was gonna change to the thing we have going on before us here.
Sure.
I think the friendship between these two characters is kind of representative of the melding of the two directors gone right. To an extent, because I know Kubrick did come up with, again, he had the idea for Gigolo Joe, but by the same token, again, Spielberg ran like all the stuff that's factored in the Jude Law's performance. That's all Spielberg. I think just kind of this friendship is kind of like the best of what they were going for. And again, in terms of whether it's overly set up or not, which obviously it is, but the fact that this is where the Pinocchio's journey, I think, is kind of at its most natural setting. Where we have these two characters on a journey and they're looking for the blue fairy because David misunderstood the story. The fact that he didn't pick up when his mother said it's just the story, David. He's just clinging to whatever he can.
All right. So what do you think of this whole the architecture of Rouge City, if you will, of Rogue City?
No, it's Rouge.
It is Rouge. Okay, sorry.
It is spelled like
the fact that like everything is like basically it's like the way I describe it, Dragon, is like that VHS of The Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if that architecture was like a style.
Right. So yeah, I mean, basically, this feels like this shot where they enter the mouth of Rouge City. This is a pure Kubrick shot. It feels like right from Clockwork Orange.
Oh yeah, big time. It
just feels like that. All those driving scenes from Clockwork Orange.
Oh man, Clockwork Orange is definitely that was a life-changing movie for me when I saw that when I was like, I don't know, I must have been like 17.
It's a great money shot here. And by the way, it's a little hard to see. I think it's in this scene. It's either in this scene or the earlier scene where Gigolo Joe was introduced. I think it's here. There's a milk bar in here somewhere. It's supposed to be the milk bar from Clockwork Orange. So this, I don't know. It's kind of funny with the sci-fi movies.
Forget the blue milk stand, Dragon. I want to visit the milk bar in a theme park.
Oh God! I'd go to it. I'd give it a shot. I'm not much of a milk guy, but you know what? I think I've had milk with cereal, and to do the Pixar cereal or something, Anyway, so real quick, so Minority Report, I think Spielberg has somewhat of a fascination with kind of the dens of sin meeting technology and the futuristic technology. Because we had that in Minority Report, like kind of the kind of the fantasy den. Remember, like the fantasy section of the
Yeah.
we're doing a lot of that here with Rouge City. Of course, Law's physicality throughout all of this is just tremendous too. Again, it's perfect. All right.
So again, my issue with the blue fairy thing is that it comes up so much, and it's just like
I prefer it when it comes up
every time
visually.
we address it, it's like we have to stop the movie dead in its tracks. It's like, hey, look, it's a fucking symbol that David can potentially misinterpret as the blue fairy. Do you get it?
I prefer it when it comes up visually, personally. That's where I think the blue fairy thing. I like the parallels we're taking because again, like we're not spelling out. We're just seeing okay, they're going on a Pinocchio-like journey, but I don't think we need literally to spell out the Pinocchio story and everything. I think it'd be kind of nice if we trusted the audience like that. But again, we need him to have blue fairy in there, and to give him blue fairy again, that means we have to work in the movie because again, I think they're afraid. And again, this is what I'm talking about. This is the trepidatious waters. Sorry, these are the treacherous waters that Spielberg's entering into because I'm not saying Kubrick is not a pretentious filmmaker, but he's an artsy filmmaker. He is. And there's a line. There's a line between artsy and pretentious, and it's a hard line to delineate with. And again, I'm not saying Spielberg is being pretentious either, but again,
Wait, so we already get Dr. No?
Yeah, we're already there, yeah.
Oh my god, wow, this movie does have a pretty breakneck pace to it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What I'm saying is there's a thin line between the two, and I feel Spielberg may have had like an underlining fear of again because again rarely does he venture into the again like Schindler's List is the closest thing he's really made to like an artsy film.
Uh-huh.
But again, it's a personal film than an artsy film. And the fact of the matter is, what we have here at the end of the day is it's sort of like I think there's a fear of being pretentious, and I think that comes out with him being afraid he's going to lose the audience. He wants to make sure like blue fairy, as people get it. I remember in an interview, Spielberg said his greatest fear is that people weren't going to get the movie, and I think that kind of translates to why we get blue fairy brought up so much, maybe.
All right, so let's talk about Google. I mean, Dr. No.
Dr. No, real fun fact. So, Dr. No was Kubrick. That was all Kubrick's doing. That was
it's just crazy because he totally feels like the most Spielbergian thing in the film.
The irony, of course, is that Spielberg, worked with Robin Williams on Hook. Therefore, he had an not the case. I mean, look, this is again, it's cute, but I mean, again, it's the most glaring inaccuracy if we had one. It's just like, yeah, no Google. It's
Dragon. I know we didn't have Google in 2001, but we had search engines.
I mean, you're right. Look, it's not. I'm not saying it doesn't show.
I'm pretty sure Yahoo search was around at the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the Futurama thing, where Futurama we would have like floppy disk and everything in the future, but and that's like 1,000 years in the future technically. But it's it's like again that they play it more for comedic purposes, and it doesn't really matter if they get things wrong. Back to the Future, they're kind of guesstimating. They kind of lucked out that half the stuff in the movie did end up actually being in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta be honest. I mean, they were batting pretty well up until this point. In terms of it's like the one major on the nose inaccuracy. But again, they couldn't have a way of predicting how big it would be, how easy things would be today. I do like ultimately we're basically this kind of guesstimating. They're trying to get the desired search results here. Essentially, what they're doing here with the categories and everything. I like how we put together, fact and fairy tale. Just kind of again, maybe on the nose, but again, it's kind of cool. We're putting them together. We're just trying to find the line there. We do get what we get from that when it happens is Robin Williams then kind of shifts from this very over the top kind of Albert Einstein-esque performance to like this really it's Robin Williams. It was dramatic. Robin Williams reading this beautiful poem.
Right.
Yeah. Of course, they're making the wooden dolls here because they're really dicey on this kind of the human effects on the blue fairy. That's why it's all.
Oh God.
Yeah.
All right, I don't know, man. I got to admit, Dr. No is probably the point where the movie loses me.
It is kind of it's indicative of No, you're right. Basically, yeah, it's indicative of the point where basically what they're I think what they're trying to get across here, Doctor Knows, it's the meeting of it's the meeting where our two purposes are colliding: reality and delusion, and again through fact and fairy tale. And it's
I mean, basically, the rest of the movie is just kind of like gonna be a meditation on the Pinocchio metaphor, and that's kind of it. You know what I mean? It's like I feel like we've got an hour left in this movie, or about 45 minutes with credits. But like,
yeah.
we've got almost a whole act where it's like, all right, and now let's kind of like take a minute and just kind of like observe what we've already laid out in the I don't know, it's very, it almost kind of feels like a study more than a movie. You know what I mean? It's very calculated.
You're right. We get to a point where again, basically, Tiki, I think Act 3 is primarily about we have to justify our ending we have to justify our two endings somehow, and we have to basically it's all about getting to those endings. And again, I think in getting there, we are just kind of speechifying. We're just trying to say things that are comforting or hopefully make sense. And again, I think I coined the whole pretentious argument, or again, artsy versus pretentious. Are we being too expositional? Are we not? Are we again just want to lose the audience?
I absolutely think we're being too exposition heavy at this point.
And that's the fact of the matter, Tig. I feel it's a Spielberg just trying to, even if they don't follow, hopefully they'll follow the pretty words coming from William Hurt.
Oh God.
Okay, but here's a problem coming up here. Well, maybe not probably. Okay, here's the thing.
I will say that the David versus David scene that we get later on is pretty effective. Like, there's good individual standout moments in the third act, but kind of as a whole, it's the weakest.
Okay, real quick, this moment between David and Gigolo Joe here, where he's again this conversation. He has some really great dialogue here. Again, I think. Bear in mind, I think we had some really good dialogue. Then we transitioned to the point you were talking about here. Like, this is really great. Where he says they made us too smart, they made us too quick.
This might be the best sci-fi idea in the whole movie. Like, honestly, if the movie was like fucking shoving this idea down our throats instead of the blue fairy bullshit, I would have been a lot more okay with it.
And that's the thing, like, this is really great dialogue and world building, but again, world building that I think we're getting.
It makes you think, man. It genuinely does. It's classic Kubrick.
What it's speaking to is, like humanity reacts in fear and overcompensation, which leads to its downfall. Which ultimately we know, thanks to that second ending, we know leads to its downfall. So that, and even where we are now with with New York and the state that it's in within this movie, that's a great idea that we're speaking to. But again, Tiki, with the whole flesh fair of it all. This is again like he's now saying what the flesh fair is all about, but I feel it's way too late. We should have known, should have had a conversation similar to this in the cage with them.
In the cage, yeah, for sure.
See, that's the problem I have with this. Is a great scene, but again, it's an idea. The threat's over. Like, what point does it have now? And again, I mean, the point that it has now is just to try to explain the ending. Like, now that's what we're doing. Getting into Act 3 is a great scene, but again, it fits into what Act 3 is all about: explaining the two endings. It's trying to speechify itself so the audience will all Tiki. Everywhere you look today, we always have these endings explained videos. It's basically an endings explained video built into the fabric of the movie.
Oh, God, Dragon, those ending explained videos is what kind of killed us for me. It was just that movie was just whored out on that front.
So again, one of the great ideas that's kind of being spoken to here is they hate us because when the end comes, all that's going to be left is us, and they know it. So again, fascinating idea that kind of feed into why they would hate their own creations.
All
right, let's see. So now, again, this scene here. Okay, I gotta admit, this scene it's kind of cute, but it's also really pointless when you really think about
it. Yeah, you're in bad trouble.
It leads to a cute gag though, where it's just leads to him running outside the thing. Just kind of shows up. I mean, I think the idea what they're going for here is that, again, David is making a human decision here. And I think that's the main point where, again, this basically feeds into William Hurt says later on. It's like, you made all these, you come all this way, David. That's what this scene is like. Look at all the stuff you've done. Where, he made a human choice where he's not just acting out a program. He's not, again, in theory, he would have just been purely loyal to the mother, and he would have been completely beside himself for the whole movie.
I hear you.
I think that's the idea. And like every choice he makes.
Honestly, I just feel like it's an excuse for an action sequence.
And you're right about that. I'm just trying to say if they're going for anything, that's the only way I can justify the rationale for like if there's any story significance, which really there's not much of. But again, if there is, it would probably be the fact that he's choosing to save his friend here. He's hijacked the thing. He's kind of breaking rules and everything. We don't really go over like the 3 laws of robotics, and that's the thing. You have to really pick a movie that's going to do that. Tiki, with the flesh figures, with the status quo and everything. I wanted to mention this too. I forgot to mention earlier. Might as well get it while there's going to be speechifying all throughout Act 3. Is iRobot, I feel, is like a really good. I think that was kind of the X factor that was missing until we got that Jude Law scene. I think iRobot addresses right from the get go that okay, people have it after robots because they're taking their jobs and they feel like they're being replaced, and that was like a direct part of that movie.
iRobot is an interesting one because I feel like that movie definitely is more clear cut with the themes.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with iRobot to me is that it's interesting themes mixed with like a very generic summer action movie.
Yeah.
Whereas this is definitely not a generic summer action movie.
Yeah. This movie, again, must have been really... I mean, you spoke to the marketing a little bit earlier, but again, I can imagine this movie's not an easy sell.
The marketing in this movie was super weird.
Yeah, it did get a toy tie-in. They actually made teddies.
Oh, no, did they? Oh, God.
Okay, so this... I want to mention this earlier in the movie with the status quo, but now we're finally in New York City. And this is a gutsy move, because, of course, many times people think of the best of humanity, people, there's always a lot of love for New York. I mean, Spielberg, of course, a bit of a New Yorker himself. Everybody loves New York. And, of course, seeing New York kind of basically Planet of the Apes New York in this movie in the future. We just flooded it.
Okay, I know you hate when I bring this up, but this isn't post 9/11 technically, right? This came out in the summer of 2001.
Yes, this came out before 9/11, and
okay, man, isn't that a little creepy unto itself?
The really creepy thing is in those certain wide shots. I know we see it.
Sure.
The Twin Towers are left in, like they're again being the tallest buildings. They stick out of the water, so they are present. And again, in the future, again being yet again. I mean, Spielberg stuck to his guns. He didn't pull like an ET flashlight thing. He didn't digitally erase them. Like they're still in there.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I do like this stuff from a visual point of view. It's very striking. I love the score, Dragon. Holy shit, we need to talk about the score because I feel like it's one of the most underrated John Williams scores.
That it is. And of course, the Weeping Lion shot. I like the Weeping Lion shots. Cool.
I do too.
John Williams, I heard that what he did for the movie was he actually, I'm kind of just kind of regurgitating a fact here on this one. I can't say I heard it firsthand. I can't verify it 100%. But I heard is that John Williams for the ending of the movie, he basically he was like he was doing the scoring session, but he just kept going on like way past with the movie's credits, and he just kept going on and on and on. And Spielberg basically edited like the best parts of it into the movie with the scores. Like he just let John Williams cut loose for the movie with the score in the third act.
Kind of going back to jazzy Johnny Williams.
One could say. Kind of funny, Stan Lee coined that jazzy thing, by the way. So I want to give him credit.
Did he really?
Well, I mean, again, when I said Jazzy Johnny Williams for the first time, I was mistaking it for Jazzy Johnny Ramita, which came from Stan Lee.
Okay. I was like, how does Stan Lee know John Williams in that
timeline? The fact of the matter is, that's why I bring it up as a running gag. And the fact is, but George Lucas calls him Johnny Williams. He gave him kind of like
yeah. George Lucas does call him Johnny Williams.
That's the thing. I just kind of mixed it together there by accident.
Jazzy Johnny Williams.
He does love jazz, though, so it is fitting.
He does. It's very appropriate.
The Terminal is all about his love of jazz, which really touched him on a fundamental level, which is why that's in there.
I bet he really likes the movie Be Kind, Rewind.
I would love to think that I'd love to think he's seen that movie and he really appreciates it.
Ooh, I wonder what he thinks of La La Land. Oh God,
I don't think John
also hates it.
I can imagine the moment with John Williams like on the couch watching the movie and he's like halfway through just checking his watch and he's like saying he's basically giving a look of like, yeah, go on, you're doing fine. Yeah, just go on. I think Matt Jones is really musically polite about movies. It's like,
Oh
yeah,
no.
they're doing their thing. Yeah, just, anyway, we're getting far off point here. So two Davids.
Yeah, and this is definitely. Would you agree? This is the best scene in Act 3.
I mean, this is an example of you and I being on diametrically opposite positions here.
Really? Okay.
So,
Okay. I'm loving this commentary, Dragon. I gotta
here's
say.
the thing. So I love what we're doing here, but again, I think the attack.
I think it comes down to the fact that you're not a horror guy and I am.
Yeah, that's probably in the DNA. I don't think you're wrong. I mean, I don't know if that's 100% it, but I think that's at least it's like maybe 75% it.
Yeah, yeah.
I love this scene. I love every scene. Like again, this proves that Hale Johnson actually, he really knows what he's doing here. It's not like if anyone's just kind of railing against him, he's acting like a robot because he can't act. That's not true because we see right here what he's doing here, where he's playing essentially the a David who didn't go through what this David went through. A David who actually would have been well adjusted and had imprint and all that sort of stuff.
Toy Story 2 version of Buzz Lightyear.
Essentially, I guess. That's the idea, I guess. Only it's thankfully not as violent in Toy Story.
Yeah.
This is where it loses me right here. Like this is really, I think this was a mistake personally. Personally, I just feels like this is unnecessary. We don't address it again. It's just like
I'm David.
Again, it's just being like uncharacteristic.
Jude Law's just kind of like, oh shit.
And that's the thing. He doesn't see him until he saves him later on, and they don't. There's no addressment of it. It's like literally the robot head falls at his feet, and this all just feels very off to me. It just feels like out of nowhere. The attack just feels like a mistake we wanted for like again. I think Spielberg overstating his position with something that's going to be really eye catching, like really leave a mark with people. I think it's leaving a mark without substance. And I think that's a problem, personally.
All right, fair enough.
So, but this is also kind of a plot problem here. You tell me what you think of this. So, essentially, what Dr. Hobby is talking about here, Professor Hobby is talking about here, is that he knew David was coming. I think he's playing a little bit too much like Wizard of Oz here. He's playing a little too much like Mr. Wizard. He's playing too much like the Great and Powerful Oz here.
He's definitely got that quality to him for sure.
Essentially, what my problem is that it feels a little too convenient. Where the fact that he hacked in the
or maybe even that he's a real blue fairy. Maybe that's what they're going for.
No, that's exactly what they're going for. That he is the blue fairy. That's what he says here. But
right.
The matter is that he hacked in the Doctor. No, and that to me feels like okay. That's just taking out what happened. You should be surprised by David. You shouldn't be expecting him and all that. Here's the thing: the very simple thing that again they never addressed because it would have been too easy, and would have killed like some plot points of the movie here. I guess is the fact that why wouldn't there just be a tracker in the kid?
Yeah, right.
Track your product. I mean, it's not that much of a futuristic idea either. It's like
no, it's really not.
Like, why can't we just track him? Like, can't we say that instead of the fact that we have like a whole convoluted thing where he says like, I've been following your entire journey. You lost us a few times there, David. I mean, we hacked in the Doctor. That's how we knew you were showing up. It's like, really? Even knowing that you had the other kid waiting for him just to wig him out, really?
Right.
That to me, it's a writing problem to me.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
I mean, what he's saying here again, I think we're speechifying a little bit. I think we're speechifying a lot here, but I do kind of respect what he's saying. Where I was your blue fairy here. Where you're basically they're saying that David is real without having to actually see a blue fairy. Where the fact that his journey proved his humanity. So I like the sentiment there. I do. And like how would sorry. But the point being, sorry, just forget what I was about to go on to with that thought. The point being is just his journey proved his humanity. Therefore, he doesn't need an actual blue fairy. The blue fairy was him all. It's a Wizard of Oz, like we have the shoes the whole time, sort of revelation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, when we do this reveal, well, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of things here. If you want to get anything in before we get to the dummies reveal,
I don't have that much to add. Again, like with Act 3, it's just kind of like a lot of exposition and overly explaining, and so you kind of called that this would be a problem with a commentary, Dragon. Like this,
I'll solve it right now. So here's
okay.
So this is a problem right here. He leaves and he just takes a really long time coming back, and in this time, really long time coming back. Again, no rush at all. Just doesn't really care, I guess. David wanders, and of course he has this big kind of like dawning realization when he sees like the long line of Joe Osmonds coming up here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking a little bit to what we're about to see unfold. I mean, he's kind of exploring the environment right now. But we're about to see like Haley Joel Osment. He had to be like plaster cast so they can make all these dummies. Which I mean, for a kid, I imagine be a little harrowing. It's gonna be like especially if you have like any. I don't know if Joe Osment has like a thing with confined spaces, but it's like a trippy thing. To have like a plaster cast. And now we just do it all digitally. But back in the day, though, the plaster cast taken, and now it's. And now you just scan people in. Now it just has to be like casting the whole thing to make the whole row of dummies right now.
Yeah.
I love the shot. I love the shot coming up there where he has like the through the eyes shot. That's a really cool shot. It's really kind of that to me is that's kind of like horror movie trippy. It's like kind of Get Out style of like, oh man, so that's a trippy shot.
I kind of think the issue with this factory scene or wherever this place is supposed to be is the fact that we don't necessarily dwell on it for as long as we should. Like, to me, this almost and again, it's going to kind of get into that whole, the very, very messy thing that we have with Act 3, it's like, it kind of speaks to the fact that they really gave it two endings. Like, this to me feels like the proper point in which we should end the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is. I love. Okay, I'm sorry. I love the shot here where you see like the first thing he remembers. With the, the corporate, the corporate logo. Well, you remember? I'm sorry. I'm just trying to remember here. So here's the thing. Might be trippy if this is the case because I remember 20 years passed after the opening of the movie. If I'm remembering. Well, wait, no. I'm sorry. I think I'm screwing that up because. Correct me if I'm wrong, T, and I could be absolutely wrong here. I want to say if there was a time jump from when they talked about like making the human robots, and then like I want to say 20 years passed or so, and then by that
I would not be surprised if there was a time jump. Yeah.
I can't remember if we saw like the couple being picked right after that meeting, or if it was like 20 years later. Then we checked in with the couple. I think it was 20 years later. Then we checked in the couple. Basically, assuming that's the case, the idea is that this is the same place where they posited the idea, and then the idea is like 20 years later, like that's when the polar ice caps melt and they kind of raised in the same building. I think it's what they're saying.
Right.
How do you feel about like the creepy box moving moment? Again, this is the Buzz Lightyear revelation that David's having right now. You were a toy, you can't fly. We're just walking down the aisle.
I am Mrs. Nesbit.
Yep, and I'll tell you this, David, we'll go sailing no more after this little dive he's about to take here.
Oh, God.
No, but seriously, it is really kind of cool and kind of trippy there. Where again, it's all about like a kind of a factory-produced item that is very toy-like, and give them the.
Wait a minute, I'm just realizing, like, Joe just literally walks out of the movie, right?
Well, remember, Joe's about to kind of save his bacon coming up here, but he's.
Oh, does he? Okay, I'm sorry.
The fact of the matter is, he does this. You're right, though. He does this beer unceremoniously, just kind of waiting outside because again, after that whole heads being severed moment, he's about to save his bacon here. Good shot, though. So, anyways, the point being, like, the whole like summer toys, kind of like namesake of the piece. Again, it's a very kind of Toy Story like shot. I was just seeing all the other Davids, and the fact that he's seeing an image of you're not special, and he can't live with that. Like, this to me plays a lot better than him smashing the other one's head. This plays okay. Your life is in shambles after you realize you're not special. You're not like a one of a kind thing. Of course, the school of fish is stupid, though. I will say that's the dumbest thing in the I think the dumbest line for me is probably like, let he without sim cast the first stone, and this whole like the school of fish really took him to. Why can't we just have him fall and maybe like there being like the waterfall effect? There's like something like a current or something. Why can't that take him to where he?
I can just hear Lucas like whispering in Spielberg's ear, like, the fish should be in CGI, Steven.
It's like, it's just on the phone. Like, George, I'm in over my head here. I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, do you have any ideas? Well, Stephen, you have to get him from point A to point B. I mean, there's water. I mean, there's fish, right? I mean, I just kind of did this movie where people are it's like kind of take a deep dive, and it's kind of the watery side of a planet. I think we can do that.
Uh-huh.
Thanks, George. All right. So again, David in the water shot here. This is kind of cool, and this kind of the. I love that he gets what he asked for here, the blue fairy, and he's kind of plucked out of things. Like the minute he sees the reaction of which he sees the blue fairy is really cool. I love that we don't see. I don't believe we see her just yet.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I don't remember if we build that reveal or yeah, it's a really kind of cool trip. Like we're building up the visage of what we just saw. That's a good choice. I mean, this really good set design on this, by the way, is kind of this watery kind of setting here. Now, here's the thing with Joe. I love that Joe's last action here is that he hears about the blue fairy, doesn't question it. He's not bringing up like the thing he was bringing up earlier about what if she's not real. I do love that his last action here, as he's absconded with, is that he's he basically helps him dive. He helps him find the blue fairy. When you become a real boy, tell her about me. That whole thing. That's nice. My problem is we just kind of uncertain the way we take him out. Like the plot point that we just kind of wrote off, we then bring back of he's a wanted criminal, man. He's a wanted felon. That's how we get rid of him.
Yeah.
This feels a little unceremonious given how great this character was in this movie.
It totally is. They just really kind of drop the ball of like, all right, we really don't like. This really does become David's story at the end, and there's not really a lot for a side character to do at the end of the day.
I mean, at least we gave him a fun moment where he helps him with with like pushing the button. That's kind of it's not much, but it's something.
It's kind of like the lame version of take her to the moon for me.
Yeah, you're right. It is kind of the old. What do you think about the underwater theme park?
It's okay, I guess. I don't know.
I gotta admit, with all I'm appreciating the visuals a lot more than just kind of the expo on it. I do like how we're. This is where we get most of the Pinocchio stuff. Again, visually, we have the whale, and
it reminds me of the Knott's Berry Farm attraction, Voyage to the Iron Reef. In retrospect, like that's I definitely can. I know that's not intentional, just kind of funny that that we have essentially a whole theme park ride that's based on a similar premise to this. Anyways.
Yeah, I do like kind of the Pinocchio kind of silhouette shot, and again the fact that the whale, that they are literally trapped in the whale because of the whale kind of knocking over the Ferris wheel. So again, they're in a cage. They're in almost like a Stromboli-like cage, but really in the belly of the whale because the whale kind of triggered this kind of Rube Goldberg effect in the dilapidated underwater park.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a part of here's I'm at war with here because I think a lot of these shots would have read a lot better if we saw these, but we didn't have the blue fairy kind of spout off every 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
But again, given how the movie ends, we need to bring up the blue fairy. But again, if we didn't need to bring up the blue fairy, I don't know, it would have been a little bit more artsy in a good way. I don't know. Basically, he's about to kind of sidle up here to the statue of the blue fairy. So basically, here we're getting ending one, as many would call it.
Pretty much.
ending one is kind of, I feel in many respects is the appropriate kind of somber ending that I think the piece was kind of going towards. And this again, many people kind of say this feels Kubrick, even though it's not Kubrick. Kubrick had the whole thing from the intention of what the following ending is. That's
right. Yeah,
that's a misconception. But again,
oh God, Dragon. You know what I'm realizing?
What are you realizing?
If we ever make a remake of AI, they have to model the blue fairy in Farmiga's image.
Well, that's what I would do.
And also, if we ever get a live action Pinocchio, Farmiga. Like, we always say that we can't cast Farmiga as everything, but Farmiga would be perfect as the
I will make the point, okay? I'm going to justify the Farmiga point here, okay?
Okay.
Robert Downey Jr. has always been talking about being Geppetto in that Pinocchio movie, and Downey Jr. and Vera Farmiga have worked together before.
There you go.
Huh? But in all seriousness, so the ending that we do have here, so again, they're kind of trapped in the belly of the whale. We kind of realize the Pinocchio thing of it all here. It's a somber ending. Again, the kid with the kind of a mission that he's doomed never to achieve. It, it's I don't know. It feels the ending that again, if this were the ending, how would you feel if this were the ending?
a lot better than I do now.
So that's the thing, because again, it feels like
I'm just
it's
fucking dreading what's coming up, Dragon. I really am.
and again, thematically, this complements the whole idea of like again the kid being in stasis, like he was, or like, again, like he's waiting for his mother's
Exactly.
love, like
Exactly.
where the kid was. He's kind of isolated from everything else. The idea is again he's kind of doomed. Though basically, again, he may live forever, he may not live forever. John Williams, he's been quoted of saying this. I still don't know entirely what he means. I don't know if he meant this scene, he didn't know about the second ending, or if he was referring to the second ending. But as far as John Williams was concerned, he said, as far as he was scoring, as far as he knew, David died. So that's as far as that's what John Williams kind of confirmed. I don't know if he was talking about this ending or the second ending, or just in general. Like, again, the kid's probably his battery running out at some point. I don't know.
Oh god, and then we what really bothers me is that we get a fucking narrator like right at the 11th hour.
I mean, well, remember we had Nera at the start, though. We did have, it's Kingsley. Now, again, like if
Oh,
Kingsley
that's
were,
true. You're right. Yeah,
if Kingsley
yeah.
were the narrator, I don't mind ending on narration here. I don't necessarily mind that. Again, it would have been effective if it just ended with all, make the so it would have been effective. But this is still kind of, I think it's pretty words coming from Ben Kingsley's kind of summarizing what's happened here. But anyway, basically what he's saying here is, again, she's frozen in ice, and again, basically exactly like Martin was. Basically, the point, like, he actually became a real boy in the sense of he's exactly like Martin and waiting to be awakened, to be reunited with his mother. So that's essentially what's being communicated, and that still would have been a fine note to end on. His eyes always staying open, again, like in the poster of AI with the two eyes, which we literally see in the shot in the second ending. So I mean, all that would have played fine. Then we get 2,000 years later.
Son of a bitch. Can we just end the commentary now and just pretend that was the real idea?
Okay, like, yeah, we basically have the shape. We almost have like the shape. By no means is it as good as this, but we have like the quasi Shape of Water ending with narration, the character in the water.
I'm just gonna be blunt. Everything in this last 20 minutes sucks. Like, I don't like a single element of it. I really fucking don't.
Look, Tiki,
it's all a mess. Like, even the CGI is worse.
Let me put it this way: you are not wrong at all with that statement. But again, I don't want to be all artsy fartsy. Just going to cite in the old auteur theory, but I mean, based on the auteur theory, you always got to
fuck the auteur theory, man. We already fucking established that some of the worst stuff in this movie came from Kubrick and not Spielberg.
And that's true, but again, knowing that, we kind of have to accept the good with the bad there. I'm saying it should have ended at that point, but by the same, just working with what we have, just analyzing what we have, which we got to do here is a commentary. Again, I think I see what Kubrick was going for. I think some of it lands, but on the whole, it is, at the end of the day, it's all unnecessary. But I see where some of it lands. Is if we have to accept it, there are certain parts of it I do see a benefit to. Not a benefit that justifies its existence, but a benefit all the same. There are substantial problems. Like the biggest problem on Earth, the biggest problem in itself is, I think everyone said, I'm not the first to say it, I think we can all agree, is that the quote unquote specialists. So here's the thing: Spielberg wanted him to be okay. I can explain what happened here. Okay, so Kubrick, from the beginning, he had an image of David by the windowsill with the specialists. So Spielberg is working entirely off of that. I don't know how much of that was. They had an image, like a storyboard image, like a piece of artwork. They had that to work with. I don't know if it was explained what those guys were or not, as far as Kubrick was concerned. What I do know is that what I'd speculate is that Spielberg would have to work with that image, and he has to find a way to justify that into an ending. Basically, work from like those aesthetic ideas into an ending. Where, okay, well, I guess Spielberg. So okay, 2,000 years later, we have these guys enter the fray and go, and basically he's going from that point forward. And I guess we have the specialists, which of course very much look like aliens, and we don't really say what these things are. It's very, very they're. To the general audience member, you have no idea what these things are, right? You're assuming alien, right? Would your assumption be alien?
I know what they're supposed to be, but
I know you know, but I'm saying, like, first watch, would you know?
First watch, yes, I definitely assumed they were aliens.
Exactly, because the idea is like they're really advanced robots, but like nowhere is that in. I think maybe half of a line is that
I mean,
indicating.
I like the idea. I like the idea that technology has advanced so far beyond our comprehension that they would look nothing like what we would, imagine a human would look like. I like that.
And that's what I'm saying, Tiki, is that for the most part, again, what we have going on here is it's robots with the humanity taken out of the design process. Where again, like they're design, it's robots designing robots at this point in the future, and it's like pinnacle of technology and that stuff. And basically, what we're going for here is again we're paying off Gigolo Joe's scene earlier on, where he said we're going to be the last things to survive, and they know it. And again, we're seeing them as the last things to survive. So in that respect, I like parts of the end. I like that element of the ending. I do. We're overstaying our welcome. It's kind of it's the old Seinfeld quote where you want to go out on a high note, and we're not exactly we're
It
overstaying our
just
welcome.
takes way too long.
Yes, and adds 20 minutes to the movie that we don't need,
It should have been 5 minutes.
if anything.
Uh-huh.
And basically, what we could have done, I'd posit this to circumvent all this, Tiki, if I may. And you can tell me if this sounds like it would have worked or not. But I'd imagine that we just, if we wanted to kind of overstay our welcome and just keep it condensed as possible, what we could have done is David, in his last moments, he has a dream, which we did mention, the element of dreaming and sleeping. Maybe we take out the bit about the robot's eyes being open the whole time. Perhaps we just end on he's looking that way, and then we just kind of we cut to black, and like the last thing we see is as a kind of a gentle fade into him having a fun time with his, reunited with his mother. And the question, like, is it real? Is he having a dream, or like, or did he ever get thawed out?
Sure.
Was he ever found, or was it a dream? Like that, as far as I would go with it personally. If I were to kind of keep this, if that was the only way I could ever see keeping the ending, this second ending in any capacity. Otherwise, it's just like we're just tacking it on because Kubrick.
It just gets way too convoluted, man. It
Well,
really just overstaying its welcome is the perfect way to describe it.
there is I've been looking at how advanced the technology is there. Where the idea is you can just kind of like a foreign piece of technology. He's found him, and he can just kind of like without even touching him or like invading the the construct. He can like kind of project his memories, like kind of a built-in Wi-Fi before there was even Wi-Fi in terms of like kind of what we're doing with the world building.
Uh-huh.
Just kind of going through the memory, the kind of the database and everything. Also, a little fun fact: the main one here, the main specialist, is voiced by Ben Kingsley. His performance, physically, and the way he moves, and maybe the voice as well, is influenced by Alec Guinness, actually.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Especially like when you can see really when he moves around. It's like the way he would move around in Star Wars with Luke. It's like exactly like that. And I'm pretty other roles too, but that's the one that comes to mind.
Uh-huh.
Here's the big poster. Here's one of the poster shots here. Like at least when it comes on Netflix, the way it's advertised, they use this. They use the poster to have this shot on.
Right. Which I
Yeah,
believe is the DVD poster, by the way.
I think that's what I'm thinking of too.
Yeah.
So again, I think what we're going for with the ending on the whole, especially here, what we do have is it's a question of where reality meets fiction. What is real in terms of what David's experiencing here, where he's experiencing something absolutely
right. And I guess now is as good time as any to get into that debate because it's it's definitely personally I think that the ending is just like they fucking just harvested all his parts and they kind of like implanted a false memory just to make it a little bit more bearable on him because their technology can do that. But at the end of the day, I think David is just dead, man. I think these aliens just completely just destroyed him when they found him. That's my.
That might be what Williams was referring to as well. What you're putting out there, it might have been like just these dead.
Uh-huh.
There's one bit of really cool sci-fi that I missed when I watched it way back when that they brought up here that kind of captivated me. It makes me wonder the opposite. TT is that the specialist he basically says that they found a way to reanimate dead tissue. So the idea is like she actually is brought back to life. I always assumed it was like they implanted a memory within the kid. That's what I always thought it was, and then that would raise the question you're bringing up. But this one thing makes me stop and think that this actually happens. Is the fact that Again, the idea is like with a piece of DNA, they can reanimate a person, but only for a day. It's as far as they've gotten with it, and so that, and again, they do directly say that, again, it could be them just saying this within the memory, though. That's the tricky part. But again, assuming they're genuine.
Greg, the reason why I have a hard time buying that is we do see we do see Teddy look at the hair. We never see him actually collect it or store it away. And also, I just think it's a little bit of a reach that, thousands of years in the future, that those hair particles wouldn't just have just turned into dust at this point.
I don't know about the hair turning into dust, but I would say, like, in terms of like Teddy being able to carry things, because he always has that thread.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
you might be right. That's a fair point. Again, the sci-fi role makes me inclined to think that this, again, the fact, again, basically, if again it could have just been in his mind, we could have trimmed it down considerably if it were like a fabrication. I don't think it would have drawn out as much as we did. But then again, that might be more the movie than what's actually than the question. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, here we have the Blue Fairy, and again, this was them basically as far as they got in terms of having a fake character animated here with computer rendered Blue Fairy here, based on they cover their bases using kind of the Toy Story logic here. Let's take a character that looks plasticky, so we won't. We're taking like it's David's encounter with the statue of the Blue Fairy. Essentially, that's what they're using. Voiced by Meryl Streep.
Oh God! Of course, Meryl Streep would voice a role this pretentious. I'm sorry, I'm not a big Streep fan.
Basically, what unfolds though, regardless of like if it's genuine or not, what we do have though, and the perchance the dream quality I bring up is, again, this is David learning to accept that. Basically, David's arc is accepting things not being real, because again, his whole arc is that he will never be a real boy, and that's what's being spelled out to him at every twist and turn. Even the specialists tell him he's not going to be a real boy. They can't do that technologically. They just can't do that. People are telling him that he's as real as he is going to be. It's how he's designed to be, and he's even fought that programming. And the fact of the matter is, he's, again, at the end of the day, his arc is, again, he accepts things not being real in a fabrication of things. Again, things may not be real, but they can be genuine. That's kind of what the hair payoff's all about. About like he's given his gift for everything that he goes through is that he's able to spend one day with his mother. And as far as they're saying here, a mother that is actually real and fully realized. So that's kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's a fleeting moment. But again, he's kind of given a chance to say goodbye. He's actually rewarded for he's given, even though he's kind of seen beyond his program. He's like not loving her out of like a devotion, out of a program to love her. He's kind of, well, we'll get to it when we get to the moment itself. I'll save a little bit later. But see, that's kind of the perchance the dream effect too. Just like it's not real. He won't will the character be willing to live a lie or not?
Right.
No matter how.
I very much think it's a kind of like an is the top spinning situation.
Well, again, I didn't read it that much. I think you make a valid argument. I didn't read it that way per se. It was kind of a spinning topic. Because I kind of approached this like, okay, it actually is happening. But again, it's unclear.
Well, it could have a similar idea to the spinning top, just because the spinning top represents a false happy ending. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It is entirely possible they stripped him for parts, but again, it's a question of. I think the reason I hesitate that they actually stripped him for parts, honestly, is the fact that what we've been saying through the whole movie, that humanity is crueler than the robots. The robots shown him kindness. He's befriended people through.
And that's exactly why they give him the false memory in the process, is their kindness. But regardless, they're still they're, I don't know.
Another thing, I don't know if they would have to, again, if they wanted to show him some kindness, they wouldn't necessarily have to just dismantle it. They could just have him intact while they're doing all that. That's the thing, and that would imply that, again, they're not. I don't know. It's all unclear, folks. I don't know what to tell you.
My whole thing is that you have to think about the population control, and that must be in place 2,000 years later, right?
Well, again, 2,000 years later, there's no humans left. That's the idea.
But I'm sure that there's a shit ton of AI.
Yeah, there is.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm saying maybe the the population control at this point is we have to pretty much disassemble any AI that we find running around now.
Well,
I'm probably reading too much into
You
it.
might be. I mean, you might be right. You raise a point there. I assume that basically the older models died off, and then they built these guys, and that basically, however many of these guys there are that many of these guys, and these guys they probably you think probably. Basically, it's a question of how much of the specialists we have left. I think only the specialists are left, and I don't know if there's going to be that many left. I think they would probably factor in the population. Anyway, yeah, we're going down semantic order. So this is the shot I was talking about from Kubrick. Kubrick had an artistic rendering of this scene. So again, I don't know how much of this Spielberg worked off from, but this shot specifically of him like by the window, so this kind of Alec Guinness kind of pose for a conversation. All this. This was directly Kubrick. I don't know if they meant like how much of the thing Kubrick had figured out, but at the very least it was this.
Okay, honestly, I think that all this like the sci-fi exposition mumbo jumbo goes on for way too long as well.
And again, I mean, this is basically what they're talking about here. This is the whole reanimation thing, which I kind of glossed over the very first time I watched it. I was kind of blown away by, oh my god, they actually brought her back to life. Man. I just thought it was like projection.
Right.
Man, it is kind of trivial. The idea is like they cracked the cryonic process to an extent. They found a way to reanimate the dead, but again, for temporarily. But again, it's fully they did it. Also, they kind of mentioned here about they basically mentioned they cracked the space-time code. That's how they were able to accomplish all this stuff. So they're really just kind of basically Spielberg is trying to justify like they can do anything.
Right, exactly.
Or honestly, again, it does feel like kind of maybe a Kubrickian concept that Spielberg's just trying to put into words. Of course, David here being the optimist here, like maybe this will be the one time where it works, where she stays, and basically, here's where they honestly think what it is that there is trying to do the same thing twice, where we had an ending where again we had some ambiguity factored in there. It was kind of a tragic. Again, the idea he's going to be stuck down there, but it's a question of like will he go on or will he just will he go on forever? Will he eventually just kind of like power down and just going to die? And maybe in his last moments realizing kind of his doomed path. And here we do kind of a similar thing where it's just a question mark of what do we do with David now? Where again he has semblance of an ending here, sure, but still, like, where do we go from here? We ended on ambiguity for a second time. It's like we're like, how much more ambiguity do you want to work in there? Do you want to? Like, is the bear real? Like that's as much more ambiguity.
I hear you.
But also, what we should talk about here with what's about to unfold is Kubrick. This speaks to the kind of the nexus of directors, Tiki. Where again, the idea is Kubrick going for a Spielberg ending. That's what he's doing here. That's what his whole ending is in theory about. It's about him just trying to end on it, kind of instead of ending like a dark or like a really memorable game. It's not like a Clockwork Orange, like he's reveling.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that's honestly one of the Dragon. We don't talk much about Kubrick, like both on and off mic, but Kubrick is like I am definitely subscribed to. Like I freaking love Kubrick as a director. I think he's obviously like a master, like just like a towering like Mount Rushmore icon of filmmaking. And one of the reasons I do dig Kubrick is I love Kubrick's endings, man. I mean, Kubrick's endings always tend to like, even the lighthearted Kubrick stuff, like Doctor Strangelove, literally ends with the world getting blown up.
It's man riding a bomb.
Like Kubrick endings are just like that's the thing, man. Is like they are so concrete. Just like Clockwork Orange is a great example. Like if anything, I feel like the closest thing that this thing gets to Kubrick, like the closest Kubrick movie that this ending emulates is maybe 2001.
Maybe.
And I'm not a big 2001 fan myself, so, I haven't really studied that one as much as some of the others. But, like, let's say something, I don't know, like, what an interesting counterpoint to this ending would be, and it's not a Kubrick movie, but it's always felt like a Kubrick movie to me, is Brazil.
It's a good choice.
You know what I mean? Because it's like both of the endings are kind of like and of course Brazil. Let's not even speak of the ungodly, like, happy ending version of that. But that movie ends in a very bleak way. It's like, okay, the character might have had his happy ending in his mind, but yeah, some fucked up shit's going on in the real world.
Right.
And I don't know. It's like, I feel like if they would have laid it out more concretely that that's what's going on here, I feel like it would have been a bit more effective.
Right. So, so again, I do like that David's working with what we have here. I do like that David's reward is a proper goodbye. That again, he is given again. Like it's we put him in an environment where we take the father and the evil the evil brother out of the equation.
Evil Freddy.
Yeah, evil Freddy, otherwise known as Martin. But yeah. Take him out of the equation. It's just the two of them. It's everything David's wants. Again, it's him kind of fulfilling his program. But importantly, the thing I love about it, by the end of it all, is that he. Sorry, let me rephrase that. What I love about it, at the very end, is the fact that she reciprocates. And again, the idea is that it's not. This is why I kind of cling to the fact that again, I'm hoping it's not a projection. Is the idea is that he achieved his life's goal, and that he achieved what the big question of his whole. Basically, the film achieves what the whole thing set out to do at the very beginning with William Hurt's character, where he brought up. Essentially kind of clunkily was brought up like, can a robots kind of receive love? Can like can love be genuine, not pre-programmed? And she loves him being just kind of being brought back fresh as a daisy, being brought back and having no. Basically she's being brought back, and of course, like in the moments, like she says "I love you" to him without being like kind of. Without being engineered in terms of she has to love him or something like that. Just again, she's like he doesn't explain all the stuff that went on. She's kind of being brought back a little fuzzy on the details. So basically, she's in a completely kind of clean place coming in, and she does have a form of love for him, and it's kind of love in the purest sense, without everything else just kind of being complicated. So again, she does return the love, and that point is like he's achieved his purpose in life. So that's really refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I do love the little painting thing. The idea is like not giving all the details, but it's like the last glimpse we get of Gigolo Joe and Mr. No and Dr. No and everything, where we just see like all the paintings, and she's like, "This is a really cute bit here." Reminds me a little bit of the grizzly bear family thing from Godzilla King of the Monsters a little bit, but it's adorable. Scaring the bear, it's cute.
God.
Again, this is all just basically this is Kubrick kind of like going for the Spielberg sentimentality, but it's kind of nice. I like the sentimentality. What's wrong with sentimentality now and again? I know, given the whole like where it was going to end, but just working with what we had, it's kind of cute.
I mean, look, it's again, my whole thing is that I wish they would have made it a little bit more concrete, but it is like a pretty powerful ending either way. You know what I mean?
I mean, to be fair, I still say it is presented in the second ending how it is. Bear in mind, now you're doubting what you're seeing based on the fact that you had an ending that would go 2,000 years in the future. If not for that jarring transition, I'd say it is pretty concrete. Like they're saying this happens, and I'm not giving a whole lot of. Again, I think we're overthinking in terms of thinking like if it's not real. I think it's just presenting it as is. It is concrete, but again, it's like it's risky being unsatisfactory.
Am I becoming one of those people that I hated who overanalyzed Us Dragon? Is that my fate?
Maybe that's your doomed fate, Tiki. Maybe that's it. Again, this is the reward right here.
A good horror movie, guys. Not every single scene needs to have some deeper meaning.
This is the reward right here. Right here, it says, "I have always loved you," and he sheds a tear, which it's.
Mm-hmm. Are you Dragon? I'm ready to put this thing to bed. Like these two are going to bed right now.
I tell you, again, at the end of the day, before we just get into the final thoughts, it's the last sentiment of it here. Is it's again the endings. Like, this ending, it's not bad either. It's just it convolutes the whole movie and how we get here. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. This is not a bad. This in itself is not a bad ending. Just like the whole like 2,000 years later. I mean, we complain about 1 year later with Fantastic Four. It's like 2,000 years later.
Oh God.
You got the ultimate time jump, Tiki. You should have been elated by it.
Right. Oh God! Come on! All right.
I kid, but no.
That's a good note to end on, though. That's a fair jab.
All right, so I guess you start us off then on final thoughts.
So we're not going to go through 8 minutes of credits, right?
No, we'll just and we end on the final thoughts. So
okay, so yeah, folks. Final thoughts, man. This might be like kind of the black sheep in Spielberg's entire filmography. I mean, I'm sure it's better than something like 1941, but it's got a lot of good ideas. Right? It's interesting. I'm kind of fascinated by how this conversation played out, Dragon, because I feel like at the end of the day, you and I kind of like both kind of arrived at the same level of appreciation for this in spite of the flaws, but we appreciated entirely different things about it. And honestly, I find that kind of fascinating and I kind of dig that. And I feel like the commentary on this movie that we did is maybe even more interesting than the movie itself, just in terms of like how how different people react to the same thing. So I'm very satisfied with this discussion. I thought this discussion turned out like way better than potentially it could have. And it's not a bad movie. It's just a very, very like confused movie that's, interesting in both good ways and bad ways. And I mean, I think it definitely holds up more than I thought it would. I'll give it that much. I think, especially especially the first couple acts, really, most of the stuff there I thought really worked. It's only really when we get into the dragged out stuff in Act 3 that the movie kind of falls apart for me still. But yeah, it's definitely a weird kind of like asterisk in Spielberg's filmography.
Yep. For me, look, the movie is a remarkably mixed bag. Again, Act 1, I mean, to me, Act 1, I think, hurts the movie in the sense that, again, it's two different movies. Hurts the movie, and most of the stuff I don't like is in Act 1, honestly. All this, again, possibly, and again, I possibly because Spielberg's trying to mirror Kubrick too much in Act 1, where again it's a director trying to be another director. He's just trying to be disingenuous to who he is, and I think it just kind of comes through with kind of like with those tone shifts and just like again, it's kind of Spielberg just kind of going outside of his wheelhouse and not necessarily in a good way. It's which again, it's so fascinating given again, and I think it's kind of a poetic kind of story of friendship here where. They meet each other. They meet each other on the set of The Overlook, and then in the middle of everything, she's trying to emulate Kubrick's style. Then years and years later, again, the button to the whole story is that he flawlessly recreates the Overlook Hotel where he met the man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that to me, again, like it has a really great ending, but this is just kind of the iffy middle of that story here, where he's just trying to. Again, it is coming from a wonderful, noble place of trying to pay tribute to Kubrick and trying to complete his last work, the mission that they both... Like, Kubrick wanted Spielberg to direct this, and Spielberg didn't even want to direct this, but he did anyway because, he liked working with Kubrick. He's loved working with Stanley Kubrick. And, in that respect, with that in mind, I do respect it. But, again, interpreting, again, and recreating Spielberg's in a class of his own at this point in time. But in interpreting Stanley Kubrick's ideas, that's tough for anybody, even Steven Spielberg. That's a tough thing to do. I wouldn't fault. Again, you can't really fault him for maybe dropping the ball on that in places. It's. I mean, the Pinocchio. But again, honestly, the Pinocchio journey in the film is the movie Spielberg's making. I feel that's where he's most confident, most comfortable, in which he knows what he's doing with it when he's making the movie. That's what I'm responding to most. And I feel, again, we're missing certain details, but I think it's all, at least there's more of a movie in there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that to me that bears more creative fruit. But again, it doesn't connect to the prologue, to the iffy prologue of Act 1 that we had. It just doesn't. Again, it just tonally doesn't connect. There's a misfire there to me. Again, like the whole advanced, the advanced specialist thing, they're added. Basically that's when things it complicates already a dicey film. We're going for the stuff with specialists by the very end, which I think we've already spoken to enough, so I don't really need to rehash it that much. But at the end of the day, this is again what I've been saying through Spielberg months so far. This is one of This is not one of Spielberg's best because it's not either a Spielberg movie and only partly a film directed by Steven Spielberg.
Right.
Because again, it just boils down to that, Tiki. Again, you have your Spielberg films, your E.T.s, your Jurassic Parks, your Jaws. Those are your They feel like Spielberg. And then you have your movies just directed by Steven Spielberg, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it happens to be like Ready Player One happens to be directed by Steven Spielberg. Hey. But again, like Ready Player One, he didn't bring it to the table, and he's directing in another person's style. So it's half and half, and I think you get what you pay for in respect. Because they kind of get what you pay for in regards to if you go for a Spielberg movie and you got kind of a Spielberg movie,
right? I hear you.
And that's what AI is. It's a mixed bag. Has again, Jude Law is an absolute highlight. I'd rewatch the Jude Law scenes just for a lot of fun. Honestly, I'd watch Act 2. Honestly, this movie. I have a lot of fun with Act 2. But all right,
okay.
Comment on it.
Do you want to kind of briefly tease up the next one that we're doing, because we did tease up AI a little bit?
Right, the next film, folks, is another in kind of the catalog of wartime movies for Spielberg. No, it's not 1941. Rest assured, it's not that one. We're not that desperate.
We'll get to that one eventually.
Remember, folks, 1941. That's the one that traumatized.
I'm going to give Ezra some crap about this. All right. Ezra did not want to be on for any of the movies this year, but yet he said he'd be on for 1941 because it's so much of a train wreck. So, anyways.
Yeah.
Empire of the Sun, the much more respectable Spielberg war movie that's pre-Saving Private Ryan.
Of course, brandishes a very impressive Christian Bale performance, the youngest Christian Bale performance. And we talk about young Bruce Wayne all the time in Gotham. You actually get to see a young Bruce Wayne, actually.
Oh God.
But also, again, it's I'm eager to look at. I've never really seen Empire of the Sun, but I've seen clips of it. Like I saw that Spielberg documentary. It's probably the most I've seen Empire of the Sun.
That's where I'm at it. Like I'm kind of familiar with the iconography of it, but I've never actually sat down and watched it.
I'm very eager to get to it. I'm pulling for it. All right, we'll see how that one turns out.
All right, so until then, folks, stay tuned until next time when we embark on another flight of wonder aboard Spielberg Minds. What do you know?